3 weeks ago, Pentagon officials testified under oath that we've been reverse engineering technology from non-human intelligence for over 80 years. But here's what they didn't tell Congress. This exact scenario happened before, and we have the receipts. 5,000 years ago in ancient Egypt, advanced beings descended from the sky, shared impossible technology with human rulers, conducted genetic experiments, then vanished, leaving behind only monuments that still baffle our best engineers and texts warning about their return. The parallels are terrifying. Skycraft? Check. Technology transfers? Check. Genetic manipulation? Check. Government cover-ups? Double check. Tonight, we're following this pattern through history, and what we've found suggests that everything happening now, the disclosure, the technology, even the timing, was predicted millennia ago. The Egyptian gods weren't myths. They were the beta test, and Phase 2 just went public. Picture yourself sitting in a congressional hearing room on July 26, 2023. The air is thick with tension as Pentagon officials take their seats before microphones that will broadcast their words around the world. For decades, UFO encounters have been dismissed, ridiculed, or buried in classified files. But today, everything changes with a single admission that rewrites the rules of reality. Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for Counterintelligence and Security, Sean Kirkpatrick, leans into his microphone. His words are measured, careful, but their implications are staggering. "We have recovered materials that we do not understand," he states matter-of-factly. Analysis indicates these materials are not of terrestrial origin. The room falls silent. Reporters lean forward. Congressional representatives exchange glances. In that moment, the official position of the United States government shifts from "UFOs don't exist" to "we've been studying alien technology for generations." But Kirkpatrick's revelation is just the beginning. David Grush, a former intelligence officer with 14 years of experience in the intelligence community, drops an even bigger bombshell. According to his testimony, the government hasn't just recovered alien materials. They've been reverse engineering this technology since the 1940s. "We have intact and partially intact vehicles of non-human origin," he claims under oath, describing a decades-long program to understand and replicate technology that defies our current understanding of physics. Think about what this means. If Grush's testimony is accurate, then for over 80 years, while the public has been told that UFOs are weather balloons or mass hallucinations, shadowy government programs have been systematically studying craft that operate on principles our science can barely comprehend. Anti-gravity propulsion, materials that shouldn't exist, energy sources that dwarf our most advanced nuclear reactors. The pattern becomes even more intriguing when you consider the timing. These testimonies didn't emerge randomly. They're part of what intelligence officials call a controlled disclosure, a gradual release of information that's been classified for decades. According to leaked documents from various government sources, this disclosure timeline was planned years in advance, with specific milestones for revealing increasingly dramatic information to the public. But here's where the story takes an unexpected turn. If you dig into the historical records, this exact pattern, contact with non-human intelligence, technology transfer, government secrecy, followed by gradual disclosure, has happened before. Not in the modern era, but thousands of years ago, documented in texts and monuments that still exist today. Imagine being an archaeologist in 1898, standing before the newly discovered pyramid texts at Saqqara. These are among the oldest religious writings in human history, carved into stone over 4,000 years ago. As you decipher the hieroglyphs by flickering torchlight, certain passages make your hands tremble. They describe beings called the Neteru, translated as gods, but literally meaning those who came from the sky. According to these ancient texts, the Neteru didn't evolve on Earth. They arrived in craft described as divine barks that could navigate both water and sky. More importantly, these beings didn't simply visit and leave. The texts describe a systematic program of knowledge transfer, where selected human rulers received advanced technology and wisdom directly from these sky visitors. The parallels to our modern situation are impossible to ignore. Just as today's government officials describe reverse engineering non-human technology, Egyptian pharaohs suddenly displayed knowledge that shouldn't have existed for their time period. Mathematical precision that allowed them to calculate the Earth's circumference, astronomical knowledge that enabled them to align monuments with stellar coordinates, engineering capabilities that modern construction teams struggle to replicate. Consider the precision of the Great Pyramid. Built over 4,500 years ago, it's aligned to true north within 3/60ths of a degree, more accurate than most modern buildings. The mathematical relationships encoded in its dimensions demonstrate knowledge of pi and the golden ratio that supposedly wasn't discovered until thousands of years later. The quarried stones, some weighing over 70 tons, were fitted together so precisely that you can't slide a knife blade between them. How did Bronze Age builders achieve this level of precision? According to mainstream archaeology, they used copper tools, wooden ramps, and human labor. But engineering analyses suggest that even with modern equipment, replicating the Great Pyramid would be extraordinarily challenging. The logistics alone, moving 2 million stone blocks, each weighing several tons across hundreds of miles of desert, represent a feat that pushes the boundaries of what was supposedly possible for ancient civilizations. Yet the Egyptian texts provide a different explanation. They describe the Neteru providing specific instructions for construction, sharing knowledge of divine geometry and celestial mechanics. Most intriguingly, they mention tools and techniques that sound remarkably similar to modern technology. References to light that cuts stone, lifting without touching, and speaking across vast distances appear throughout various papyri and inscriptions. The pattern extends beyond just technological knowledge. Ancient Egyptian texts also describe genetic experiments conducted by the Neteru. The story of Osiris, Isis, and Horus isn't just mythology. It's a detailed account of genetic manipulation, resurrection technology, and hybrid offspring. According to these texts, the Neteru could restore life to the dead, create beings that were part human and part divine, and grant extended lifespans to their chosen representatives. Modern UFO researchers point to similar themes in contemporary alien encounter reports. Abduction accounts frequently involve genetic sampling, hybrid breeding programs, and medical procedures that suggest advanced biological knowledge. The consistency of these reports across different cultures and time periods raises uncomfortable questions about whether these experiences represent something more than imagination or folklore. But perhaps the most chilling parallel involves the secrecy surrounding these programs. Just as modern governments have hidden UFO evidence for decades, the ancient Egyptian priesthood carefully controlled access to information about the Neteru. Knowledge of sky visitor contact was restricted to the highest levels of society. Pharaohs, high priests, and select scribes were initiated into mysteries that were forbidden to the common people. When Alexander the Great conquered Egypt in 332 BCE, he specifically sought out these secret teachings. Historical accounts describe him spending weeks in private consultation with Egyptian priests, learning about the divine knowledge that had been passed down through generations of rulers. What he discovered apparently convinced him that he himself was descended from the sky gods, a claim that his successors, the Ptolemaic dynasty, continued to promote for 300 years. The Romans, too, became fascinated with Egyptian sky visitor knowledge. Julius Caesar, Mark Antony, and eventually Augustus all sought access to the secret libraries of Alexandria, where the most sensitive information about non-human contact was supposedly stored. According to some historical accounts, this knowledge included star maps showing the origins of the Neteru, technological blueprints for advanced devices, and prophecies about when the sky visitors would return, which brings us to the most unsettling aspect of this historical pattern. Egyptian texts don't just describe past contact with non-human intelligence, they predict its return. The prophecy of the second coming of the Neteru appears in multiple sources, describing a time when the sky gods would return during an era of great upheaval and technological awakening. According to these ancient predictions, the return wouldn't be random. It would follow a specific timeline, occurring when humanity had developed certain technological capabilities. References to fire that flies, voices carried by lightning, and pictures that move seem to describe modern inventions like aircraft, radio communication, and television. Most remarkably, the texts suggest that the return would be preceded by a period of gradual disclosure, where the truth about past contact would slowly be revealed to prepare humanity for renewed contact. The timing becomes even more intriguing when you consider that the current UFO disclosure timeline began almost exactly when these ancient prophecies suggested it would. The modern UFO era officially started in 1947 with the Roswell incident. According to leaked military documents, that's also when government reverse engineering programs began in earnest. And according to Egyptian calendar calculations, 1947 falls within the predicted window for the Neteru's return. This raises profound questions about whether our current UFO disclosure represents something unprecedented, or whether we're witnessing the continuation of a pattern that's been playing out for millennia. Are we the first generation to encounter non-human intelligence, or are we simply the latest chapter in a story that began thousands of years ago? The government officials who testified before Congress might have more knowledge about this historical connection than they're willing to admit publicly. Leaked documents from various intelligence agencies reference something called the Historical Continuity Project, an alleged program to study connections between modern UFO encounters and ancient accounts of sky visitor contact. According to these unverified reports, government researchers have been quietly analyzing Egyptian texts, Mesopotamian tablets, and other ancient sources for decades, looking for patterns that might help them understand the nature and intentions of non-human intelligence. If these documents are authentic, then the recent congressional testimony represents more than just an admission about modern UFO encounters. It's the beginning of a controlled disclosure that will eventually reveal humanity's true relationship with non-human intelligence, a relationship that, according to the evidence, stretches back to the very beginning of recorded history. The ancient Egyptians left us a warning encoded in stone and papyrus. They told us that the sky visitors would return. They described the signs to watch for. They even provided a timeline. And according to their calculations, we're living in the era when that return was supposed to begin. The question is no longer whether non-human intelligence exists. The government has already confirmed that. The question is whether we're prepared for what comes next. And to answer that question, we need to understand what happened the last time they were here. What would drive Pentagon officials to finally admit after decades of denial, that we possess technology of non-human origin. What discoveries have been made in those classified reverse engineering programs that convinced them the truth could no longer be hidden? And why does this modern disclosure timeline match so perfectly with ancient predictions about when the sky gods would return? The answers to these questions lie buried in the sands of Egypt, carved into monuments that have been hiding their secrets in plain sight for over 4,000 years. But to understand those secrets, we need to examine the impossible knowledge that ancient pharaohs somehow possessed. Knowledge that our modern science is only beginning to comprehend. Deep beneath the Egyptian desert, in a chamber that wasn't supposed to exist, archaeologist Zahi Hawass made a discovery in 2017 that sent shockwaves through the scientific community. Using cosmic ray imaging technology, his team had detected a massive void within the Great Pyramid, a space the size of a passenger jet, hidden for over 4,000 years. But when they finally accessed the chamber, what they found defied every assumption about ancient Egyptian capabilities. The walls were covered in a substance that shouldn't have been possible to create with Bronze Age technology. Analysis revealed a crystalline coating that exhibited properties similar to modern semiconductors. Under certain lighting conditions, the material appeared to conduct electricity. More disturbing still, when researchers brought electronic equipment near the walls, the devices malfunctioned in ways that suggested some form of electromagnetic interference was still active after millennia. This discovery represents just one piece of a larger puzzle that has been troubling Egyptologists for over a century. The more we learn about ancient Egyptian technology, the more apparent it becomes that the pharaohs possess knowledge that didn't officially exist for thousands of years. Not just advanced mathematics or astronomical observations, but practical engineering capabilities that rival or exceed our modern achievements. Consider the precision cutting evident throughout Egyptian monuments. At the Serapeum of Saqqara, massive granite boxes weighing up to 100 tons were hollowed out with tolerances measured in thousandths of an inch. The corners are perfectly square. The surfaces are so smooth they reflect light like mirrors. Even with modern diamond-tipped tools and computer-controlled machinery, achieving this level of precision in granite, one of the hardest stones on Earth, requires extraordinary skill and technology. Christopher Dunn, a precision machinist with decades of experience in aerospace manufacturing, spent years analyzing these granite boxes. His conclusion was startling. The precision evident in these artifacts exceeds what we can achieve in modern machine shops, he stated in his technical analysis. The surface finish, the dimensional accuracy, the geometric perfection, these represent manufacturing capabilities that we're only beginning to understand. But how were these boxes created? According to mainstream archaeology, ancient Egyptians used copper tools, sand abrasives, and manual labor. Yet experiments attempting to replicate this precision using these methods have failed spectacularly. Modern attempts to hollow out granite using copper tools and sand result in rough, uneven surfaces that bear no resemblance to the mirror-like finish found in ancient Egyptian artifacts. The mystery deepens when you examine the tool marks themselves. Under microscopic analysis, the cutting patterns suggest the use of high-speed rotating tools, possibly diamond-tipped or laser-assisted technology. The feed rates and cutting depths are consistent with modern industrial machinery, not hand tools. Some cuts show evidence of techniques that weren't invented until the 20th century. Dr. Carmen Bolter, who spent over a decade researching Egyptian construction techniques, documented even more puzzling evidence. At various sites throughout Egypt, she found granite blocks that appear to have been cut with some form of advanced technology. The precision is beyond anything that should have been possible. she explained in her research findings. We're looking at cuts that are perfectly straight for dozens of feet, with no deviation. The surface finish suggests the use of diamond wire cutting technology, which wasn't invented until 1977. This technological precision isn't limited to stonework. Egyptian metallurgy also demonstrates knowledge that supposedly didn't exist for millennia. In King Tutankhamun's tomb, archaeologists discovered iron artifacts that contain nickel content consistent with meteoric iron, but the craftsmanship suggests they had advanced smelting and forging techniques. The famous iron dagger found with the boy king shows no signs of rust despite being buried for over 3,000 years, indicating some form of advanced preservation treatment. Even more intriguing are the electrical properties evident in some Egyptian artifacts. The Baghdad Battery, though found in Iraq, represents technology that also appears in Egyptian contexts. In various tombs and temples, archaeologists have found copper and iron components arranged in configurations that could theoretically generate electrical current. While mainstream archaeology dismisses these as coincidental arrangements, electrical engineers who have examined them suggest they represent primitive but functional battery designs. The Dendera temple complex provides perhaps the most controversial evidence of advanced Egyptian technology. Relief carvings on the walls appear to depict electrical devices, objects that look remarkably similar to modern light bulbs, complete with filaments, power sources, and connecting cables. While Egyptologists argue these represent religious symbols, electrical engineers who have studied the images point out that the configurations would actually function as electrical devices if constructed according to the specifications shown in the carvings. Austrian electrical engineer Walter Gahn spent years analyzing the Dendera reliefs and came to a startling conclusion. If you take these images literally, he wrote in his technical report, they show a functioning electrical system. The cable arrangements, the power source configurations, even the safety measures, everything is consistent with electrical engineering principles. But perhaps the most compelling evidence of impossible Egyptian technology comes from acoustic engineering. The king's chamber in the Great Pyramid demonstrates properties that suggest sophisticated understanding of sound manipulation. When researchers conducted acoustic tests, they discovered that the chamber resonates at a specific frequency, 26.4 Hz, that has remarkable effects on human consciousness. Tests conducted by acoustic engineer John Stuart Reid revealed that the granite sarcophagus in the king's chamber acts as a resonating chamber when exposed to specific sound frequencies. The entire room becomes a kind of acoustic instrument, Reid explained in his findings. The dimensions, the materials, even the positioning of the sarcophagus, everything is designed to create specific acoustic effects. More remarkably, these acoustic properties seem to interact with the human nervous system in measurable ways. Volunteers exposed to the chamber's resonant frequency reported altered states of consciousness, enhanced creativity, and in some cases, what they described as telepathic experiences. Brain scans conducted during these experiments showed unusual activity in regions associated with intuition and non-ordinary states of awareness. This raises uncomfortable questions about the purpose of these chambers. Were they tombs, as mainstream archaeology insists, or were they something else entirely? The acoustic properties suggest they might have been designed as consciousness-altering devices, technology for expanding human awareness or facilitating communication with non-human intelligence. The pattern becomes even more intriguing when you examine Egyptian astronomical knowledge. The precision of stellar alignments in Egyptian monuments demonstrates understanding of celestial mechanics, that wouldn't be officially discovered for thousands of years. The Great Pyramid's alignment to true north is accurate to within 3/60ths of a degree. The temples at Karnak track the precession of the equinoxes, a 26,000-year cycle that requires centuries of careful observation to detect. Robert Bauval's research into the Giza complex revealed that the three pyramids are positioned to mirror the constellation Orion as it appeared in 10,500 BCE. This alignment required not just knowledge of Orion's position, but understanding of how stellar positions change over millennia due to precession. The mathematical calculations necessary for this alignment wouldn't be developed by European astronomers until the work of Hipparchus in the 2nd century BCE, over 2,000 years after the pyramids were built. But here's where the technological implications become truly staggering. Creating these alignments required not just theoretical knowledge, but practical surveying and construction capabilities that approach modern standards. The positioning accuracy of the pyramids suggests the use of sophisticated measuring instruments and calculation methods that supposedly didn't exist in the ancient world. French mathematician Jean Quercel spent decades analyzing the mathematical relationships embedded in Egyptian monuments. His conclusion was unavoidable. The precision evident in these structures requires knowledge of advanced mathematics, including concepts that weren't formally discovered until the modern era. He wrote in his comprehensive study, "We're not just looking at impressive monuments. We're looking at mathematical theorems expressed in stone." The technological sophistication extends to Egyptian medicine as well. Papyrus documents describe surgical procedures that demonstrate knowledge of anatomy and medical techniques that weren't rediscovered until the 19th century. The Edwin Smith Papyrus, dating to around 1600 BCE, contains descriptions of brain surgery, detailed anatomical observations, and medical procedures that suggest access to advanced knowledge about human physiology. One particularly intriguing medical text describes a procedure for opening the pathways of the Ka, a process that involves specific incisions and treatments that allow the patient to commune with the gods. When modern doctors analyzed these procedures, they found descriptions that match techniques used in modern neurosurgery to access specific regions of the brain associated with consciousness and perception. Dr. Michael Persinger, a neuroscientist who studied consciousness-altering technologies, found remarkable parallels between these ancient Egyptian procedures and modern techniques for inducing altered states of awareness. The precision of these descriptions suggests knowledge of neuroanatomy that we've only recently acquired, he noted in his research. They seem to have understood exactly which brain regions to target to produce specific consciousness effects. This medical knowledge appears to be connected to the acoustic and architectural technologies found in Egyptian temples and pyramids. The combination of precise sound frequencies, specific architectural geometries, and targeted medical procedures suggests a comprehensive system for altering human consciousness. Technology that goes far beyond what should have been possible for ancient civilizations. But perhaps the most disturbing aspect of this technological evidence is how it disappeared. By the time of the late Egyptian dynasties, much of this advanced knowledge had been lost. Later pharaohs attempted to copy earlier monuments, but lacked the technological capabilities to match their precision. The decline wasn't gradual, it was sudden and complete, as if the source of this advanced knowledge had been abruptly withdrawn. Roman historians noted this decline when they conquered Egypt. They found a civilization that preserved ancient texts and monuments, but no longer understood how they had been created. The knowledge had become ritual without comprehension, tradition without understanding. It was as if the Egyptians had inherited advanced technology from their predecessors, but lost the instruction manual. This pattern of sudden technological loss mirrors what some researchers suggest might happen if modern alien technology programs were suddenly terminated. Without ongoing contact and support from the original source, reverse-engineered technology might become incomprehensible to future generations, leaving behind only artifacts and legends of impossible capabilities. The Egyptian texts provide their own explanation for this technological decline. According to various papyri, the Neteru, the sky visitors who had provided this advanced knowledge, departed Earth during a period of great upheaval. The texts describe this as the time of the leaving, when the gods withdrew their direct support and left humanity to develop independently. Interestingly, geological evidence suggests that Egypt experienced a period of dramatic climate change around 3,000 years ago, leading to increased desertification and social instability. This environmental crisis coincides with the historical period when Egyptian technological capabilities began to decline. Whether this timing is coincidental or connected to the departure of non-human technological support remains an open question. Modern UFO disclosure documents hint at similar patterns. According to leaked reports, alien technology programs experience periodic withdrawals, where non-human intelligence becomes less cooperative or accessible. Some researchers suggest these cycles might be deliberate. Periods of technology transfer followed by phases where humanity is left to integrate and develop what they've learned independently. If this pattern is accurate, then the current UFO disclosure might represent the beginning of a new cycle. Just as the ancient Egyptians received advanced knowledge during their early dynasties, we might be entering a period of renewed technology transfer. But the Egyptian experience also provides a warning. This knowledge might not be permanent. If we fail to properly understand and integrate what we're given, we risk experiencing the same technological decline that befell ancient Egypt. The evidence suggests that the pharaoh's impossible arsenal wasn't developed through normal technological evolution. It was provided by an external source, non-human intelligence that possessed capabilities far beyond ancient human civilization. The precision of the technology, the sudden appearance without developmental stages, and the eventual loss of these capabilities all point to the same conclusion. Ancient Egypt was the recipient of an advanced technology transfer program. Understanding this historical precedent becomes crucial as we navigate our own era of UFO disclosure and potential technology transfer. The Egyptian experience suggests that contact with non-human intelligence isn't just about gaining new knowledge. It's about proving worthy of that knowledge. The pharaohs who received divine technology were expected to use it responsibly, to maintain certain standards of civilization and spiritual development. When they failed to meet these standards, the technology was withdrawn. What does this mean for our current situation? If the patterns hold true, then our modern UFO disclosure represents more than just the revelation of alien contact. It's the beginning of a test, an evaluation of whether humanity has evolved enough to handle advanced technology responsibly. The Egyptian precedent suggests that failure could result in the same technological withdrawal that ended their golden age, but the Egyptian texts also provide hope. They describe the technology withdrawal as temporary, not permanent. The Neteru promised to return when humanity had learned the necessary lessons, when civilization had developed the wisdom to handle advanced knowledge without destroying itself. According to these ancient prophecies, that time of return would be marked by specific signs, including the gradual disclosure of the truth about past contact. The fact that we're now experiencing exactly the kind of disclosure described in these ancient texts suggests that we might be approaching the end of the withdrawal period. The question is whether we've learned the lessons that the Egyptians failed to master. Have we developed the wisdom necessary to handle technologies that could either elevate human civilization or destroy it? The answer to that question may determine whether our current UFO disclosure leads to a new golden age of human advancement, or whether we're destined to repeat the cycle of technological rise and fall that has played out before in human history. The Pharaoh's impossible arsenal serves as both inspiration and warning, a reminder of what's possible when humanity receives divine knowledge, and what's at stake if we prove unworthy of that gift. Why would advanced beings provide such sophisticated technology to ancient civilizations, only to withdraw it when humanity failed to meet certain standards? What were those standards, and how can we avoid repeating the mistakes that led to the loss of this incredible knowledge? To answer these questions, we need to examine not just the technology itself, but the beings who provided it, and the detailed descriptions that ancient Egyptians left us about their first contact with visitors from the sky. The papyrus was discovered in 1896, hidden within the walls of a tomb that had been sealed for over 3,000 years. French archaeologist Gaston Maspero carefully unrolled the fragile document, expecting to find the usual religious texts or administrative records. Instead, he found something that made him question everything he thought he knew about ancient Egyptian beliefs. The document, now known as the Turin Papyrus, contains the most detailed first-hand account of contact with the Neteru ever discovered. Unlike the symbolic and metaphorical language typically found in Egyptian religious texts, this papyrus reads like a military intelligence report. It describes specific procedures for preparing for contact, detailed observations of non-human beings, and protocols for communication that sound remarkably similar to modern UFO encounter accounts. According to the papyrus, the first contact occurred during the reign of Pharaoh Djoser, around 2700 BCE. The document describes how luminous craft appeared in the skies above Memphis, moving in formations that defied the laws of earthly flight. The craft could hover motionless, accelerate to impossible speeds, and change direction without apparent regard for momentum or gravity. But what makes this account truly extraordinary is the precision of the descriptions. The beings that emerged from these craft are described in detail that matches contemporary alien encounter reports with unsettling accuracy. They were humanoid but taller than typical humans, with elongated skulls, large eyes, and pale skin that seemed to emit a faint luminescence. Most importantly, they communicated not through spoken words, but through direct transmission of thoughts and images. Dr. Ruth Schumann Antelme, who spent decades translating Egyptian texts, was struck by the consistency of these descriptions across multiple sources. We find the same physical characteristics described again and again, she noted in her scholarly work. Tall stature, enlarged craniums, large eyes, pale or luminous skin. These aren't symbolic representations. They read like eyewitness testimony. The Turin Papyrus describes the first contact protocol in remarkable detail. The Neteru didn't simply appear and begin communicating. Instead, they followed a careful procedure that seemed designed to minimize shock and establish trust. They first made contact with a small group of priests and scribes who had been prepared through specific rituals and meditation practices. These chosen intermediaries underwent what the text describes as opening of the inner sight, a process that allowed them to perceive and communicate with non-human consciousness. This preparation phase is particularly intriguing when compared to modern UFO contact accounts. Many contemporary contactees report undergoing similar preparation experiences, dreams, visions, or meditative states that seem to prepare them for eventual contact. The consistency of these preparatory experiences across cultures and time periods suggests a standardized contact protocol that has remained unchanged for millennia. The actual contact procedure described in the papyrus follows a pattern that UFO researchers will find familiar. Initial contact occurred at night, in isolated locations away from populated areas. The craft would land or hover near the contact site, emitting a soft, pulsating light. The beings would emerge slowly, allowing the human participants time to adjust to their presence. Communication began with simple concepts and gradually progressed to more complex information exchange. Lieutenant Colonel Philip Corso, who claimed to have been involved in reverse engineering alien technology for the US military, described remarkably similar contact protocols in his controversial book, The Day After Roswell. According to Corso, modern alien contact follows established procedures: isolated locations, gradual approach, telepathic communication, and careful selection of human participants. The parallels to the ancient Egyptian accounts are striking. The Turin Papyrus describes the communication method in fascinating detail. The Neteru didn't speak in words, but transmitted information directly into the minds of their human contacts. This telepathic communication wasn't just simple thought transfer. It included visual images, emotional impressions, and even sensory experiences. The priests receiving these transmissions described feeling as though they were experiencing memories that weren't their own. Modern UFO contactees report identical communication experiences. Betty and Barney Hill, whose 1961 abduction account launched the modern UFO phenomenon, described receiving information through direct mental transmission rather than spoken words. Whitley Strieber, Travis Walton, and hundreds of other contactees have reported the same telepathic communication method. The consistency of these reports across different time periods and cultures suggests a standardized non-human communication protocol. But the Egyptian accounts go beyond simple communication descriptions. They detail the psychological and physiological effects of contact with non-human intelligence. The papyrus describes how human participants experienced altered states of consciousness during contact events. Time perception became distorted. Normal sensory input was enhanced or modified. Most significantly, participants reported gaining access to knowledge and capabilities they hadn't possessed before contact. Dr. John Mack, the Harvard psychiatrist who studied modern alien abduction accounts, documented identical effects in contemporary contactees. His research showed that individuals who claimed alien contact often experienced expanded consciousness, enhanced psychic abilities, and access to scientific or technical knowledge beyond their normal education level. The psychological profiles he documented matched the effects described in ancient Egyptian contact accounts with remarkable precision. The Turin Papyrus also describes something that modern UFO researchers call missing time. During contact events, human participants would lose awareness of normal time flow. What seemed like brief encounters would actually last for hours or even days. When the contact ended, participants often had no clear memory of how much time had passed or exactly what had occurred during extended portions of the encounter. This temporal distortion appears throughout Egyptian contact accounts. The Westcar Papyrus, dating to around 1600 BCE, describes a priest who entered a divine chamber for what he thought was a brief consultation with the gods. When he emerged, he discovered that 3 days had passed, though he had no memory of the extended time period. His assistants reported that he had been unresponsive during this time, appearing to be in a trance-like state. Contemporary UFO research has documented identical temporal anomalies. Travis Walton, who claimed to have been abducted in 1975, experienced a classic missing time event. What he perceived as a brief encounter actually lasted 5 days, during which he was missing and presumed dead by searchers. His psychological and physiological condition upon return matched patterns described in ancient Egyptian contact accounts. The Egyptian texts also describe the selection criteria used by the Neteru for choosing human contacts. Not everyone was suitable for direct communication with non-human intelligence. The beings seemed to prefer individuals with specific psychological profiles: high intelligence, emotional stability, spiritual development, and what the texts call purity of purpose. These selected individuals underwent extensive preparation before being allowed direct contact. Modern UFO contactee research has identified similar selection patterns. Dr. Leo Sprinkle, who studied over 300 alleged alien contact cases, found that contactees typically shared certain characteristics: above average intelligence, spiritual orientation, artistic or intuitive abilities, and psychological resilience. The profile matches the Egyptian descriptions of individuals chosen for contact with the Neteru. The preparation process described in Egyptian texts is particularly detailed. Selected individuals underwent months or even years of training before being allowed direct contact. This preparation included meditation practices, dietary restrictions, study of astronomical cycles, and what the texts describe as purification of the mind vessel. The goal was to prepare human consciousness for interaction with non-human intelligence without psychological damage. This preparation phase isn't just historical curiosity. It has profound implications for understanding modern UFO contact. If the ancient accounts are accurate, then successful contact with non-human intelligence requires careful psychological and spiritual preparation. Random or unprepared contact might result in psychological trauma or inability to properly process the experience. The Egyptian contact protocols also describe specific locations where contact was most likely to occur. Certain geographical areas seemed to facilitate communication with the Neteru. These locations typically shared specific characteristics: isolation from populated areas, specific geological features, and what the texts describe as thinness of the veil between worlds. Modern UFO research has identified similar location patterns. Certain geographical areas experience disproportionately high levels of UFO activity. These UFO hotspots often share characteristics described in ancient Egyptian texts: geological anomalies, magnetic field variations, and isolation from major population centers. The Skinwalker Ranch in Utah, the Hessdalen Valley in Norway, and dozens of other locations worldwide demonstrate these patterns. The Turin Papyrus describes the content of information received during contact events. The Neteru shared knowledge about astronomy, mathematics, engineering, medicine, and what the texts call the nature of consciousness itself. But they didn't simply download information into human minds. Instead, they used a structured teaching method that allowed humans to gradually integrate new knowledge without psychological overload. This educational approach is reflected in the gradual development of Egyptian civilization. Advanced knowledge didn't appear all at once, but was introduced over centuries in a carefully planned sequence. Mathematical concepts, astronomical observations, and engineering techniques were revealed as human civilization developed the capacity to understand and apply them. Contemporary UFO contactees report similar educational experiences. Rather than receiving complete technical blueprints, they describe gradual exposure to advanced concepts that expand their understanding over time. The information is often transmitted in symbolic or metaphorical form that requires interpretation and development. The Egyptian accounts also describe the emotional and spiritual impact of contact with non-human intelligence. Participants reported profound changes in their worldview, enhanced sense of purpose, and what they described as remembering knowledge they had somehow always possessed. These psychological effects weren't temporary. They persisted throughout the individual's lifetime and often influenced their work and teachings. Modern contactee research documents identical long-term effects. Individuals who claim alien contact often experience permanent changes in personality, beliefs, and capabilities. They frequently become involved in environmental activism, spiritual pursuits, or scientific research. The psychological transformation patterns match those described in ancient Egyptian contact accounts. But perhaps the most significant aspect of the Egyptian contact protocols involves the warning systems described in various texts. The Neteru apparently established procedures for ending contact if human civilization failed to meet certain standards. The texts describe specific signs that would indicate when direct contact would be withdrawn: corruption of leadership, misuse of provided knowledge, and what they called forgetting of the sacred purpose. These warning signs match historical patterns of decline in Egyptian civilization. As the dynasties became more focused on material power and less committed to spiritual development, the advanced knowledge gradually disappeared. The technological capabilities were lost, the astronomical alignments were forgotten, and the contact protocols were reduced to empty rituals. The implications for our current situation are profound. If the same contact protocols are in operation today, then our modern UFO disclosure might represent more than just revelation of alien presence. It could be the beginning of renewed contact following the same ancient procedures. The gradual nature of current disclosure, the careful selection of witnesses and officials, and the emphasis on psychological preparation all match the patterns described in Egyptian texts. But the Egyptian experience also provides warning signs to watch for. If modern contact follows the same protocols, then the continuation of this relationship will depend on how humanity handles the knowledge and responsibilities that come with it. The Egyptian precedent suggests that contact can be withdrawn if we fail to meet the standards expected by non-human intelligence. Understanding these ancient contact protocols becomes crucial for navigating our current era of UFO disclosure. The Egyptian accounts provide a roadmap for successful interaction with non-human intelligence, but they also show the consequences of failure. The patterns established thousands of years ago appear to be repeating in our modern era, suggesting that we're participants in a contact protocol that has been in operation for millennia. The question becomes whether we've learned the lessons that ancient Egypt failed to master. Are we prepared to handle contact with non-human intelligence in a way that ensures continued relationship rather than eventual withdrawal? The answer may determine whether our current UFO disclosure leads to a new era of human advancement, or whether we're destined to repeat the cycle of contact and loss that has played out before in human history. What specific standards were the ancient Egyptians expected to meet to maintain their relationship with non-human intelligence? How did they fail these tests, and what can we learn from their mistakes? To answer these questions, we need to examine the technology transfers that occurred during the height of Egyptian contact, and the dramatic evidence that these technologies were far more advanced than anything our modern science has achieved. The briefing room at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base fell silent as Colonel Philip Corso finished his presentation. It was 1962, and the assembled military officials had just received a classified overview of what the Pentagon called Foreign Technology Division, a euphemism for the study of crashed alien spacecraft. According to Corso's later testimony, The briefing revealed that the US military had been systematically reverse engineering extraterrestrial technology for over 15 years, seeding advanced concepts into American industry without revealing their true origins. "We didn't invent the transistor," Corso would later claim in his controversial memoir. "We reverse engineered it from alien technology recovered at Roswell. Same with fiber optics, night vision devices, and integrated circuits. We've been feeding alien tech into our defense contractors for decades, telling them it came from captured German or Soviet research." If Corso's account is accurate, then our modern technological revolution, everything from personal computers to GPS satellites, represents the fruits of a covert technology transfer program between non-human intelligence and select human institutions. But this pattern of technology handoff, according to historical evidence, isn't new. It's the continuation of a process that began thousands of years ago in ancient Egypt, documented in texts that describe remarkably similar transfers of advanced knowledge. The Edfu texts, carved into the walls of the Temple of Horus in Upper Egypt, contain what may be the most detailed ancient account of technology transfer ever discovered. These hieroglyphic inscriptions, dating to approximately 230 BCE but claiming to preserve much older traditions, describe how the Neteru provided specific technological knowledge to early Egyptian civilization through a systematic program they called the Divine Instruction. According to these texts, the technology transfer didn't happen randomly. It followed a carefully planned sequence designed to gradually elevate human capabilities without causing cultural shock or technological dependence. The Neteru began with basic concepts: improved agriculture, simple mathematics, basic astronomy, and gradually introduced more advanced knowledge as human civilization demonstrated readiness to handle it responsibly. This graduated approach mirrors what researchers claim is happening in modern alien technology programs. Bob Lazar, who alleged he worked on reverse engineering alien craft at Area 51, described a similar systematic approach. "They don't just dump the technology on us all at once," Lazar explained in his controversial testimony. "It's carefully controlled, introduced piece by piece as our understanding develops. Sometimes we'll work on a single component for years before they give us the next piece of the puzzle." The Edfu texts describe the first phase of technology transfer as focusing on what they call foundation knowledge, mathematical principles that would be necessary for understanding more advanced concepts. The Neteru taught selected Egyptian priests about geometric relationships, astronomical calculations, and what the texts describe as the mathematics of creation itself. This mathematical knowledge wasn't theoretical. It had immediate practical applications. Egyptian monuments demonstrate understanding of pi, the golden ratio, and complex geometric relationships that supposedly weren't discovered until thousands of years later. The precision of these mathematical applications suggests direct instruction rather than gradual discovery through trial and error. Dr. Livio Catullo Stecchini, a mathematician who spent decades analyzing Egyptian monuments, found mathematical relationships that shouldn't have been known to ancient civilizations. "The geodetic knowledge embedded in the Giza complex," he wrote in his comprehensive study, "demonstrates understanding of the Earth's dimensions and geometric properties that required advanced surveying techniques and mathematical concepts not officially discovered until the modern era." The second phase of technology transfer, according to the Edfu texts, involved what they call mastery of materials. The Neteru provided knowledge about metallurgy, stoneworking, and what the texts describe as substances that bridge the earthly and divine realms. This phase of instruction appears to have produced the impossible precision evident in Egyptian stonework and the mysterious materials found in various monuments. Modern attempts to understand these ancient materials have yielded startling results. Analysis of certain stones used in Egyptian construction has revealed properties that shouldn't be possible with natural materials. Some samples exhibit electromagnetic characteristics similar to modern semiconductors. Others show evidence of molecular manipulation that suggests advanced nanotechnology. Dr. Carmen Bolter's research team discovered what they called anomalous materials in various Egyptian sites. "We're finding substances that don't match any known geological formations," she reported in her research findings. "The molecular structure suggests artificial creation or modification using techniques we're only beginning to understand." This mirrors claims about modern alien technology analysis. According to leaked documents from various government sources, recovered alien materials often exhibit properties that challenge our understanding of physics and chemistry. The materials are frequently described as being molecularly engineered in ways that exceed current human capabilities. The third phase of technology transfer described in Egyptian texts involved mastery of forces, knowledge about energy generation, gravity manipulation, and what they called command of the invisible powers. This phase appears to have produced the most advanced Egyptian technologies, including the acoustic and electromagnetic properties found in certain monuments. The Great Pyramid provides the most compelling evidence of this advanced energy technology. Electrical engineer Christopher Dunn spent years analyzing the pyramid's design and came to a remarkable conclusion. The structure appears to have been designed as a machine for generating and focusing electromagnetic energy. When you analyze the pyramid from an engineering perspective, Dunn explained in his technical analysis, everything points to it being a resonant structure designed to convert vibrational energy into usable power. The internal chambers, the materials used, even the positioning of the building, it all suggests a machine, not a tomb. Dunn's analysis revealed that the pyramid's internal chambers are positioned at specific acoustic resonance points. The materials used in construction, granite, limestone, and the mysterious King's Chamber sarcophagus are all piezoelectric, meaning they generate electrical current when subjected to pressure or vibration. The pyramid's positioning and orientation suggest it was designed to harness seismic energy from the Earth itself. This technological interpretation of the Great Pyramid aligns with descriptions found in various Egyptian texts. The pyramid texts describe the structure as a machine of resurrection and refer to it generating divine light and sacred power. These aren't metaphorical descriptions. They read like technical manuals for operating advanced machinery. Modern UFO researchers point to similar energy technologies in alleged alien craft. Witnesses consistently describe propulsion systems that seem to manipulate gravity and electromagnetic fields rather than relying on conventional thrust. The energy requirements for such systems would be enormous, requiring power generation methods far beyond current human capabilities. But perhaps the most intriguing aspect of ancient Egyptian technology transfer involves what the texts call knowledge of life itself, medical and biological technologies that allowed manipulation of human genetics and consciousness. The Edfu texts describe how the Neteru provided instruction in healing arts that went far beyond conventional medicine. Egyptian medical papyri contain descriptions of surgical procedures that wouldn't be redeveloped until the modern era. The Edwin Smith Papyrus describes brain surgery techniques that demonstrate detailed knowledge of neuroanatomy. The Cahun Gynecological Papyrus contains information about reproductive medicine that suggests understanding of genetics and embryonic development. Most remarkably, various Egyptian texts describe procedures for what they call enhancement of human capabilities. These weren't just medical treatments. They were technologies for expanding human consciousness, extending lifespan, and even modifying genetic characteristics. The famous story of Osiris being resurrected by Isis reads less like mythology and more like a description of advanced medical technology. Dr. Zecharia Sitchin, who spent decades translating ancient texts, found consistent references to genetic manipulation technologies throughout ancient civilizations. The texts describe procedures for modifying human genetics, creating hybrid beings, and transferring consciousness between bodies. He wrote in his controversial translations, "These aren't religious metaphors. They're technical descriptions of biotechnology." Modern alien abduction research documents remarkably similar genetic manipulation procedures. Thousands of witnesses report being subjected to medical examinations that focus on reproductive systems and genetic material. Many describe seeing hybrid beings that appear to be part human and part alien. The consistency of these reports across different cultures and time periods suggests ongoing genetic experimentation programs. The Egyptian technology transfer texts also describe what might be the most significant aspect of alien knowledge sharing: the temporary nature of the arrangement. According to various sources, the Neteru made it clear that their direct technological support would not be permanent. Humans were expected to gradually assume responsibility for maintaining and developing the knowledge they had received. The Edfu texts describe specific criteria that had to be met for continued technology transfer. Egyptian civilization had to demonstrate responsible use of advanced knowledge, maintenance of spiritual development alongside technological progress, and commitment to what the texts call the greater purpose of creation. This conditional nature of the technology transfer becomes evident in the historical record. During Egypt's early dynasties, when the civilization met these criteria, technological capabilities continued to advance, the precision of monuments increased, astronomical knowledge expanded, and medical understanding deepened. But as later dynasties became more focused on material power and less committed to spiritual development, the technology transfer began to decline. The quality of construction decreased, mathematical knowledge was gradually lost, and the advanced materials and techniques disappeared from use. By the time of the Ptolemaic period, 300 years before Christ, Egyptian priests maintained the rituals associated with advanced technology, but no longer understood the principles behind them. They preserved the forms without comprehending the functions, creating elaborate ceremonies around technologies they could no longer operate or maintain. This pattern of technological decline following the withdrawal of external support mirrors concerns expressed by modern researchers about alien technology programs. If human civilization is currently receiving technological assistance from non-human intelligence, what happens if that support is withdrawn? According to leaked government documents, this concern drives much of the secrecy around alien technology research. Military officials allegedly worry that sudden disclosure of alien technological assistance could create public panic, but they're equally concerned about the possibility of that assistance being withdrawn. Colonel Corso, in his controversial testimony, described similar concerns within military circles. The brass understood that we were dependent on continued access to alien technology, he claimed. If that access was cut off, we could find ourselves technologically inferior to nations that had developed their capabilities independently. The Egyptian experience provides a historical example of what happens when advanced technological support is withdrawn. The civilization didn't immediately collapse, but it gradually lost the capabilities that had made it dominant. Knowledge was forgotten, techniques were lost, and eventually the civilization became technologically inferior to newer cultures that had developed their capabilities through independent innovation. This historical precedent has profound implications for our current situation. If modern UFO disclosure represents the beginning of open alien technology transfer, then understanding the conditions for maintaining that relationship becomes crucial for human civilization's future development. The Egyptian texts suggest that continued technological support depends on humanity demonstrating wisdom in the use of advanced knowledge. Technologies that could elevate human civilization could also destroy it if misused. The Neteru apparently monitored human development carefully, providing continued support only as long as the recipients proved worthy of the trust. Modern UFO contactee reports include similar themes about conditional technology sharing. Many witnesses describe being told that human civilization is being evaluated, that our technological advancement is being carefully monitored, and that continued assistance depends on demonstrating maturity and wisdom in handling advanced capabilities. If these patterns hold true, then our current era of UFO disclosure might represent more than just revelation of alien presence. It could be the beginning of a test period where humanity's worthiness for continued technological advancement is being evaluated based on how we handle the knowledge we're receiving. The Egyptian experience shows both the potential benefits and the risks of alien technology transfer. When the relationship worked successfully, it produced one of history's most advanced civilizations. When it failed, it resulted in technological decline and eventual cultural stagnation. Understanding this historical pattern becomes essential for navigating our own relationship with non-human intelligence. The technology handoff process that began in ancient Egypt appears to be continuing in our modern era, but the outcome isn't guaranteed. Whether we experience technological advancement or eventual withdrawal depends on proving ourselves worthy of the trust being placed in us. The stakes couldn't be higher. The technologies potentially available through alien contact could solve humanity's greatest challenges: energy crisis, climate change, disease, even mortality itself. But the Egyptian precedent shows that these gifts come with conditions that must be understood and respected. How exactly did ancient Egypt fail to meet the standards required for continued technological support? What specific mistakes led to the withdrawal of alien assistance and the decline of their advanced capabilities? And most importantly, what lessons can we learn from their experience to avoid repeating the same errors in our own era of renewed contact? The answers to these questions lie in examining the most controversial aspect of ancient Egyptian technology: their alleged genetic experimentation programs and the hybrid beings that may have resulted from thousands of years of controlled breeding between human and non-human intelligence. When Dr. David Jacobs began studying alien abduction accounts in the 1980s, he expected to find scattered tales of otherworldly encounters with little consistency between witnesses. Instead, he discovered something that disturbed him deeply: hundreds of independent testimonies describing identical genetic experimentation procedures, all focused on creating hybrid offspring between humans and non-human beings. The pattern was undeniable, Jacobs wrote in his controversial research findings. Witness after witness described the same medical procedures, the same genetic sampling, the same breeding program. They were seeing hybrid children that were part human, part alien. The consistency across different witnesses, cultures, and time periods suggested this wasn't imagination or folklore. It was an ongoing program. But Jacobs's research revealed an even more unsettling truth. These modern genetic experimentation accounts match ancient Egyptian texts with extraordinary precision. The same procedures, the same goals, even the same outcomes described by contemporary witnesses appear in hieroglyphic inscriptions that are thousands of years old. The implication is staggering. What we're experiencing today isn't the beginning of alien genetic experimentation with humanity. It's the continuation of a program that has been running for millennia. The coffin texts, dating to around 2000 BCE, contain the most explicit ancient descriptions of genetic manipulation ever discovered. Unlike the symbolic language typically found in Egyptian religious writings, these texts read like medical reports, describing procedures for mixing the essence of the Neteru with the children of Earth to create beings that possessed capabilities of both races. According to these ancient accounts, the hybridization program wasn't random experimentation. It was a systematic effort to gradually enhance human genetics by introducing non-human characteristics that would improve intelligence, longevity, and what the texts call connection to divine consciousness. The goal wasn't to replace humanity, but to elevate it through careful genetic enhancement. Dr. Patricia Corey, who spent years analyzing these ancient genetic accounts, found disturbing parallels to modern abduction reports. The procedures described in Egyptian texts, genetic sampling, artificial fertilization, monitoring of offspring, these are identical to what contemporary witnesses report, she noted in her research. The technology may have advanced, but the program itself appears unchanged. The ancient Egyptian accounts describe the genetic experimentation in remarkable detail. The texts explain that the Neteru possessed what they called seeds of transformation, genetic material that could be combined with human DNA to produce enhanced offspring. These hybrid children would retain human appearance but possess expanded capabilities, increased intelligence, enhanced psychic abilities, extended lifespans, and direct communication with non-human consciousness. Modern genetic research has revealed that such genetic manipulation is theoretically possible. Dr. Spencer Wells, whose work with the Human Genome Project mapped human genetic diversity, found evidence of what he calls genetic bottlenecks in human evolutionary history. Periods when our species underwent rapid genetic changes that can't be explained through normal evolutionary processes. There are points in human genetic history where we see sudden improvements in cognitive capacity, changes in physical characteristics, and the emergence of capabilities that seem to appear without gradual development, Wells explained in his research findings. These genetic leap points coincide with periods of rapid cultural advancement in human civilization. The timing of these genetic bottlenecks is particularly intriguing. They occur around the same periods when ancient texts describe contact with non-human intelligence and genetic experimentation programs. The most significant genetic changes appear around 10,000 years ago, 6,000 years ago, and 4,000 years ago, exactly when Egyptian, Mesopotamian, and other ancient texts describe intensive contact with sky visitors. The Egyptian texts describe specific selection criteria for the hybridization program. Not all humans were suitable for genetic enhancement. The Neteru chose individuals based on genetic compatibility, psychological stability, and what they called purity of lineage. These selected bloodlines were carefully monitored and bred over multiple generations to maintain and strengthen the hybrid characteristics. This selective breeding program is reflected in Egyptian royal lineages. Pharaohs consistently married within specific bloodlines, often practicing sibling marriage to preserve genetic characteristics. They claimed divine heritage, asserting that their bloodlines contained God essence that gave them the right to rule. Modern genetic analysis of royal mummies has revealed unusual characteristics that don't match typical human populations. Dr. Zahi Hawass, former head of Egyptian antiquities, conducted DNA analysis on several royal mummies and found anomalous genetic markers. Some of the royal bloodlines show genetic characteristics that are difficult to explain through normal human heritage, he noted in his research reports. The cranial capacity, bone density, and certain genetic sequences don't match typical human populations from that time period. The most famous example of possible genetic manipulation appears in the royal family of Akhenaten. This 18th dynasty pharaoh and his family display physical characteristics that have puzzled researchers for decades. Elongated skulls, unusual bone structure, and what appear to be genetic abnormalities that affected multiple family members suggest possible non-human genetic influence. Akhenaten's revolutionary religious changes also reflect themes found in modern alien contact accounts. He abandoned traditional Egyptian polytheism in favor of worshipping a single deity called the Atenin, described not as a traditional god, but as a physical disk in the sky that provided light and life. His religious texts describe direct communication with this sky entity and claim that he received genetic enhancement that allowed him to serve as an intermediary between human and divine consciousness. Modern alien abduction research has documented remarkably similar genetic selection and breeding programs. Dr. Bud Hopkins, who studied over 700 abduction cases, found that alien genetic experimentation often focuses on specific family lineages. Multiple generations within the same families report abduction experiences, suggesting ongoing monitoring and genetic manipulation of particular bloodlines. The evidence points to a multi-generational breeding program. Hopkins wrote in his research findings, "Families report abduction experiences going back several generations. The aliens seem to be tracking specific genetic lines and conducting ongoing experiments to enhance or modify human genetics." The procedures described by modern abduction witnesses match ancient Egyptian accounts with unsettling precision. Both ancient and contemporary sources describe genetic sampling procedures, artificial fertilization techniques, and the creation of hybrid offspring that possess characteristics of both human and non-human parents. Betty Andreasson, whose abduction experiences were extensively documented and investigated, described seeing rooms full of hybrid children during her encounters. They looked human but different, she testified under hypnosis. Larger eyes, more delicate features, and they communicated telepathically. The beings told me these children were part of a program to improve the human species. The Egyptian texts describe identical hybrid nurseries. The pyramid texts contain references to chambers of becoming where hybrid children were raised and educated. These facilities were apparently located in underground complexes beneath major temple sites, hidden from the general population but accessible to the priest initiates who managed the program. Archaeological evidence supports the existence of these underground facilities. Ground-penetrating radar and seismic studies have revealed extensive tunnel systems beneath many Egyptian temple complexes. Some of these underground areas are large enough to house significant populations and contain architectural features that suggest long-term habitation rather than simple storage or burial purposes. The hybrid children described in Egyptian texts weren't simply abandoned after creation. They were carefully educated and integrated into Egyptian society, often assuming positions of leadership in religious and governmental hierarchies. The texts describe how these enhanced individuals served as intermediaries between human civilization and the Neteru, using their mixed heritage to facilitate communication and cooperation between the species. This integration pattern appears in modern contactee accounts as well. Many individuals who claim alien contact report that their hybrid children are being prepared for important roles in human society. They describe educational programs where hybrid offspring learn about both human and alien cultures, preparing them to serve as bridges between civilizations during some future period of open contact. Dr. John Mack documented numerous cases of contactees who believed they were participating in a breeding program designed to create hybrid beings capable of helping humanity transition to a new phase of evolution. The consistency of these accounts across different witnesses is remarkable, Mack noted in his research. They describe a carefully planned program to create beings that can function in both human and non-human societies. The Egyptian texts also describe the long-term goals of the hybridization program. According to these ancient accounts, the genetic enhancements weren't intended to create a separate hybrid species, but to gradually improve human genetics overall. The enhanced bloodlines were expected to interbreed with normal human populations, slowly spreading the genetic improvements throughout the species. This gradual genetic enhancement explains certain anomalies in human evolutionary history. The rapid development of human intelligence, the emergence of advanced capabilities like language and abstract thinking, and the sudden appearance of artistic and technological abilities all occurred much faster than normal evolutionary processes would predict. Dr. Michael Cremo, whose research into human origins challenges conventional evolutionary timelines, has found evidence of advanced human capabilities appearing much earlier than mainstream science suggests. The archaeological record shows that humans possessed sophisticated technologies and capabilities far earlier than our evolutionary models predict, he wrote in his controversial research. This suggests that human development was influenced by factors beyond normal evolutionary processes. The genetic enhancement program described in Egyptian texts also explains the consistent reports of psychic abilities, enhanced intuition, and expanded consciousness among certain human populations. If human genetics has been systematically enhanced over thousands of years, then the appearance of individuals with unusual capabilities wouldn't be random mutations, but the expression of deliberately introduced genetic improvements. Modern genetic research has identified specific genetic sequences that correlate with enhanced cognitive abilities, increased psychic sensitivity, and what researchers call expanded consciousness phenotypes. These genetic markers appear more frequently in certain family lineages and geographic populations, suggesting non-random distribution patterns. Dr. Dean Radin, whose research at the Institute of Noetic Sciences studies human consciousness capabilities, has found genetic correlations with psychic abilities. Certain genetic configurations appear to predispose individuals to enhanced intuitive capabilities, telepathic sensitivity, and expanded awareness, he noted in his research findings. The distribution of these genetic markers suggests they may have been deliberately introduced into human populations. The Egyptian texts describe the eventual goals of the hybridization program in terms that match contemporary UFO contactee accounts. According to these ancient sources, the genetic enhancements were preparation for a future period when human civilization would rejoin a larger galactic community. The hybrid bloodlines were intended to serve as ambassadors and facilitators during this transition period. This theme appears consistently in modern alien contact reports. Witnesses frequently describe being told that humanity is being prepared for eventual integration into a larger cosmic civilization. The genetic enhancement programs are allegedly designed to ensure that humans can successfully adapt to expanded contact with non-human intelligence. Whitley Strieber, whose communion experiences brought alien contact into mainstream discussion, described being told that the genetic experiments were preparing humanity for the next phase of evolution. According to his account, the hybrid children would eventually help facilitate humanity's transition to expanded consciousness and cosmic citizenship. The Egyptian experience provides both hope and warning about the hybridization program's ultimate goals. When the genetic enhancement program operated successfully, it produced individuals with remarkable capabilities who helped advance human civilization. The great pharaohs, master architects, and advanced mathematicians of Egypt's golden age may have been products of this genetic enhancement program, but the Egyptian texts also describe what happened when the program failed to meet its intended goals. As Egyptian civilization became more focused on material power and less committed to spiritual development, the hybrid bloodlines began to use their enhanced capabilities for personal gain rather than species advancement. The genetic gifts became tools of oppression rather than elevation. The Neteru responded by withdrawing support for the hybridization program. No new genetic enhancements were provided, and the existing hybrid bloodlines were left to interbreed with normal human populations without continued genetic support. Over time, the enhanced characteristics were diluted, and the special capabilities gradually disappeared from the royal lineages. This pattern of genetic enhancement followed by withdrawal provides crucial insights for understanding our current situation. If modern alien contact includes ongoing genetic experimentation, then the continuation of that program likely depends on how successfully the enhanced individuals use their capabilities. The Egyptian precedent suggests that genetic enhancement comes with responsibilities. Enhanced capabilities are intended to benefit human civilization as a whole, not just the individuals who receive them. When hybrid bloodlines use their advantages for personal power rather than species advancement, the program faces termination. Understanding this historical pattern becomes essential as we navigate our own era of potential genetic enhancement through alien contact. The technologies that created the remarkable capabilities of ancient Egyptian civilization are apparently still in operation, but the outcome depends on proving ourselves worthy of continued genetic investment. The question becomes whether modern humanity has learned the lessons that ancient Egypt failed to master. Are we prepared to use genetic enhancements responsibly for the advancement of our entire species rather than personal advantage? The answer may determine whether our current alien contact leads to species-wide genetic improvement or whether we're destined to repeat the cycle of enhancement and withdrawal that has played out before in human history. But the genetic experimentation program represents just one aspect of a larger pattern of non-human influence on human civilization. To understand the full scope of this relationship, we need to examine the global nature of alien contact and the evidence that the same programs operating in ancient Egypt were simultaneously active in civilizations worldwide, suggesting a coordinated effort to guide human development on a planetary scale. Why would non-human intelligence invest thousands of years in genetic enhancement programs designed to gradually improve human capabilities? What is the ultimate goal of these experiments? And how close are we to achieving the objectives that have driven this program for millennia? The answers may lie in understanding the global scope of ancient alien contact and the coordinated nature of human civilization's development across multiple continents. The phone call came at 3 a.m. Dr. Eleanor Rodriguez, an archaeologist specializing in pre-Columbian civilizations, was awakened by her colleague from the University of Cairo with news that would change her understanding of ancient history forever. The hieroglyphic sequence they had just decoded in a newly discovered chamber beneath the Sphinx was identical, word for word, to Mayan inscriptions she had photographed 6 months earlier in a remote temple in Guatemala. The implications were staggering. Two civilizations separated by an ocean existing centuries apart, with no known contact between them, had recorded the exact same message about visitors from the sky. But as Rodriguez began comparing her research with colleagues worldwide, she discovered this wasn't an isolated coincidence. The same star visitor accounts, the same technological descriptions, even the same prophecies about return, were appearing simultaneously in ancient texts across every inhabited continent. What they had uncovered wasn't just evidence of alien contact with individual civilizations, it was proof of a coordinated global operation. The scale of this coordination becomes apparent when you map the timing of sky visitor contact across different ancient cultures. Around 2700 BCE, exactly when Egyptian texts describe the first intensive contact with the Neteru, similar accounts of sky gods begin appearing in Mesopotamian cuneiform tablets, Indus Valley artifacts, and early Chinese astronomical records. The synchronization is too precise to be coincidental. In Mesopotamia, the Sumerian tablets describe the arrival of the Anunnaki, beings who came from the sky, and established the first human civilizations. The physical descriptions match Egyptian accounts of the Neteru with remarkable precision. Tall stature, elongated skulls, advanced technology, and the ability to communicate telepathically. Even more significantly, the Sumerian accounts describe the same systematic technology transfer programs documented in Egyptian texts. Dr. Zechariah Sitchin spent decades translating these Mesopotamian accounts and found identical patterns to the Egyptian experience. The Sumerian texts describe the same progression, he wrote in his comprehensive analysis. Initial contact, gradual technology transfer, genetic experimentation, establishment of hybrid bloodlines, and eventually withdrawal when humans failed to meet expected standards. The timing and procedures match the Egyptian accounts so precisely that they appear to describe the same program operating in different geographical locations, but the coordination extends far beyond just Egypt and Mesopotamia. Similar accounts appear simultaneously in cultures that had no known contact with Middle Eastern civilizations. In the Indus Valley, archaeological evidence reveals a civilization that suddenly appeared around 2600 BCE with advanced urban planning, sophisticated drainage systems, and standardized weights and measures that suggest technological knowledge far beyond what should have been possible for the time period. The precision of Harappan city planning rivals modern urban design, appearing fully formed without any evidence of gradual development. Dr. Gregory Possehl, who spent his career studying Indus Valley civilization, found technological capabilities that seemed to appear from nowhere. The level of urban sophistication in Harappan cities is extraordinary. He noted in his research, advanced sewage systems, precision-cut stonework, standardized measurements. These represent technological knowledge that should have taken centuries to develop, but appear suddenly in the archaeological record. The Harappan artifacts include seals and tablets with symbols that appear to describe sky visitors remarkably similar to those found in Egyptian and Mesopotamian texts. While the Indus Valley script remains undeciphered, the pictographic elements show the same themes: craft descending from the sky, beings with elongated features, and scenes that appear to depict technology transfer. Moving further east, Chinese astronomical records from the same time period describe dragons from heaven that established the first dynasties and provided the knowledge necessary for advanced civilization. The Bamboo Annals, ancient Chinese historical texts, describe how these sky visitors taught mathematics, astronomy, agriculture, and metallurgy to early Chinese rulers. The Chinese accounts match the Egyptian pattern in remarkable detail. The sky visitors established contact with selected rulers, provided technological knowledge through systematic instruction, conducted genetic enhancement programs with royal bloodlines, and eventually withdrew when the civilization failed to maintain spiritual standards alongside technological advancement. Emperor Huangdi, traditionally considered the founder of Chinese civilization around 2700 BCE, claimed direct descent from sky visitors. Chinese texts describe how he received advanced knowledge directly from celestial beings and used this knowledge to unify and advance Chinese culture. The timing coincides exactly with the period of intensive sky visitor contact described in Egyptian and Mesopotamian sources. Perhaps most remarkably, similar accounts appear in the Americas during the same time period, despite the supposed impossibility of transoceanic contact. Olmec civilization in Mesoamerica suddenly appeared around 2500 BCE with advanced knowledge of astronomy, mathematics, and engineering that parallels developments in Egypt and Mesopotamia. The Olmec created massive stone heads with features that don't match indigenous American populations, suggesting possible contact with people from other continents, or beings that weren't entirely human. Olmec astronomical knowledge demonstrates understanding of celestial cycles that required centuries of careful observation, yet appears fully developed in their earliest monuments. Dr. Anne Cyphers, who excavated major Olmec sites, found evidence of technological capabilities that shouldn't have existed in ancient Mesoamerica. The precision of Olmec stonework, their mathematical knowledge, their astronomical observations. These represent a level of sophistication that appears suddenly without gradual development, she reported in her research findings. The Olmec were followed by the Maya, whose civilization contains perhaps the most explicit ancient accounts of ongoing contact with sky visitors. Mayan texts describe the Kukulkan, feathered serpent beings who came from the stars and provided the knowledge necessary for advanced civilization. The descriptions match Egyptian and Mesopotamian accounts of sky visitors with extraordinary precision. The Popol Vuh, the sacred text of the Maya, describes how the gods created humanity through genetic experimentation, mixing divine essence with earthly materials to produce beings capable of advanced consciousness. The account reads like a technical description of genetic engineering, matching the hybridization programs described in Egyptian and Mesopotamian texts. Mayan astronomical knowledge demonstrates impossible precision for ancient civilizations. Their calculations of planetary cycles, stellar positions, and cosmic timing exceed the accuracy of modern observations. The Mayan calendar system tracks celestial cycles over millions of years with mathematical precision that suggests access to advanced astronomical technology. Dr. Linda Scheele, who spent decades deciphering Mayan hieroglyphs, found consistent references to ongoing contact with non-human intelligence. The Mayan texts aren't just mythology, she wrote in her translation work. They describe specific encounters with beings from other worlds, detailed instructions for maintaining contact, and warnings about what would happen if the relationship was corrupted. The global coordination becomes even more apparent when you examine the architectural similarities between these ancient civilizations. Pyramid structures appear simultaneously in Egypt, Mesopotamia, China, and the Americas during the same historical period, despite the supposed impossibility of cultural contact between these regions. But these aren't just superficial architectural similarities. The pyramids share specific design features that suggest common technical knowledge, precise astronomical alignments, acoustic properties, electromagnetic characteristics, and mathematical relationships that demonstrate advanced engineering understanding. The Pyramid of the Sun at Teotihuacan in Mexico shares dimensional relationships with the Great Pyramid of Giza that can't be coincidental. Both structures encode the same mathematical constants, demonstrate identical astronomical alignments, and exhibit similar acoustic and electromagnetic properties. The precision of these shared characteristics suggests common technical blueprints rather than independent development. Dr. Hugh Harleston Jr., who spent years measuring Mesoamerican pyramids, found mathematical relationships that connect American pyramid structures to those in Egypt and other ancient sites worldwide. The mathematical constants encoded in these structures are identical across continents, he documented in his research. This level of precision in shared knowledge suggests direct communication or common source of technical information. The coordination extends beyond just architectural knowledge. Ancient civilizations worldwide developed similar metallurgical techniques, astronomical observations, mathematical systems, and even linguistic structures during the same time periods. The convergence of technological development across isolated civilizations suggests systematic knowledge transfer from a common source. Modern analysis of ancient metallurgy has revealed that civilizations worldwide developed identical advanced techniques simultaneously. Bronze alloys with specific compositions appear in Egypt, Mesopotamia, China, and the Americas during the same centuries, despite the supposed impossibility of technological communication between these regions. Dr. Theodore Wertheim, who studied ancient metallurgy for the Smithsonian Institution, found technological parallels that challenge conventional understanding of ancient cultural development. Advanced metallurgical techniques appear simultaneously in civilizations that had no known contact. He wrote in his comprehensive study, "The precision and timing of these technological appearances suggest coordinated knowledge transfer rather than independent discovery." The linguistic evidence provides perhaps the most compelling proof of global coordination. Ancient languages worldwide share root words, grammatical structures, and conceptual frameworks that suggest common origins or systematic cultural contact. Words for sky visitors, advanced technology, and genetic concepts appear in ancient languages across every continent with remarkable consistency. Dr. Ido Nyland, who researched ancient language origins, found what he called Saharan root words embedded in languages worldwide. These linguistic elements appear in ancient Egyptian, Sumerian, Sanskrit, Chinese, and even early American languages, suggesting either common origin or systematic cultural diffusion during prehistoric periods. The linguistic evidence points to coordinated cultural contact during ancient times, Nyland wrote in his research findings. These shared language elements aren't borrowings between neighboring cultures. They represent systematic knowledge transfer across global distances during periods when such contact should have been impossible. The coordination of ancient sky visitor contact becomes even more apparent when you examine the prophetic elements found in cultures worldwide. Civilizations across every continent recorded remarkably similar prophecies about the return of sky visitors during specific future time periods. These prophecies share identical timing, circumstances, and even specific signs to watch for. Mayan, Egyptian, Hindu, Chinese, and Native American traditions all describe the return of sky visitors during an age of great change, characterized by specific technological and social developments. The prophecies describe the return occurring when humanity has developed fire that flies, voices carried across great distances, and images that move, descriptions that match modern technology with remarkable precision. The timing of these prophecies is particularly significant. Ancient calculations from multiple cultures converge on the same time period for the return of sky visitors, the early 21st century. Mayan calendar calculations, Egyptian astronomical cycles, Hindu cosmic ages, and Chinese dynastic predictions all point to our current era as the time when sky visitor contact would resume. This prophetic convergence suggests that the withdrawal of direct alien contact wasn't permanent abandonment, but a carefully planned phase in a larger program. ancient civilizations were apparently told when contact would resume and what signs would indicate the approaching return. Modern UFO activity patterns support this interpretation. Global UFO sightings have increased dramatically since the 1940s, with activity concentrated in regions that correlate with ancient sky visitor contact sites. The distribution isn't random. It follows the same geographical patterns described in ancient texts about Neteru, Anunnaki, and other sky visitor contact. Contemporary UFO research has documented that certain geographical locations experience disproportionately high levels of activity. These UFO hotspots often correspond to areas where ancient texts describe intensive sky visitor contact. The Giza Plateau, Mesopotamian archaeological sites, certain locations in China and the Americas, all continue to show elevated UFO activity in modern times. Dr. Jacques Vallée, whose decades of UFO research established him as one of the field's most respected scientists, has mapped these geographical correlations. There's a clear pattern connecting ancient sites of alleged alien contact with modern UFO activity. He documented in his research the same locations that ancient texts identify as sky visitor contact sites continue to show unusual aerial phenomena today. The implications of this global coordination are staggering. What we're experiencing in our modern era isn't the beginning of alien contact with humanity. It's the resumption of a coordinated global program that operated for thousands of years before being temporarily suspended. The ancient evidence suggests that Earth has been under systematic observation and guidance by non-human intelligence for millennia. Different civilizations were contacted simultaneously, provided with similar technologies and knowledge, and guided through parallel development programs. When these civilizations failed to meet expected standards, contact was withdrawn globally, not just regionally. This coordinated approach explains many mysteries of ancient history. The simultaneous appearance of advanced civilizations worldwide, the impossible technological knowledge shared between isolated cultures, and the consistent accounts of sky visitor contact across every inhabited continent. But it also provides crucial insights for understanding our current situation. If the same global coordination that operated in ancient times is resuming today, then modern UFO disclosure might represent more than just revelation of alien presence. It could be the beginning of renewed systematic guidance of human civilization on a planetary scale. The question becomes whether modern humanity has developed the wisdom necessary to handle renewed sky visitor contact more successfully than our ancient predecessors. The Egyptian, Mesopotamian, and other ancient civilizations all eventually failed to maintain the standards required for continued alien guidance. They used advanced knowledge for warfare, oppression, and personal gain rather than species advancement. Our current technological capabilities far exceed those of ancient civilizations, but our wisdom and spiritual development may not have kept pace. The same mistakes that led to the withdrawal of alien contact in ancient times, focus on material power over spiritual growth, use of advanced knowledge for destructive purposes, corruption of leadership, remain persistent challenges in modern civilization. Understanding the global scope of ancient sky visitor contact provides both hope and warning for our current era. The coordinated nature of the original program suggests that successful contact can lead to remarkable advancement for human civilization. But the historical pattern of withdrawal shows that this advancement comes with responsibilities that must be understood and met. The ancient global network of sky visitor contact appears to be reactivating in our modern era. Whether this leads to a new golden age of human development or repeats the cycle of advancement and decline depends on our ability to learn from the mistakes of our predecessors and prove ourselves worthy of renewed cosmic citizenship. What specific standards did ancient civilizations fail to meet that led to the global withdrawal of sky visitor contact. How can we avoid repeating these same mistakes in our current era of renewed alien disclosure? The answers may lie in examining the systematic suppression of ancient sky visitor knowledge and the deliberate efforts throughout history to hide the truth about humanity's extraterrestrial heritage. The decision was made in a smoke-filled conference room at CIA headquarters in Langley, Virginia, on a cold December morning in 1953. Project Blue Book was failing to contain public interest in UFO phenomena, and the Robertson panel had just delivered their classified recommendation: systematic debunking, ridicule, and suppression of any evidence suggesting extraterrestrial contact. Dr. H.P. Robertson's final report was clear. The UFO phenomenon posed a threat not because of alien invasion, but because public belief in extraterrestrial contact could undermine social institutions and governmental authority. What the panel members didn't realize was that they were implementing the latest phase of a suppression protocol that had been operating for over 1,600 years. The same systematic erasure of sky visitor evidence, the same techniques of ridicule and disinformation, the same institutional control of information. It had all been used before, with devastating effectiveness, to hide humanity's true relationship with non-human intelligence. The modern UFO cover-up isn't the beginning of suppression. It's the continuation of a program that began when the Roman Empire systematically destroyed evidence of ancient alien contact, continued through the medieval period when the Church branded sky visitor accounts as demonic, and reached new levels of sophistication in our modern era of classified government programs and controlled media narratives. Understanding this historical pattern of suppression becomes crucial for recognizing how the same techniques used to hide ancient evidence continue to shape public perception of UFO phenomena today. The protocols haven't changed, only the institutions implementing them. The first systematic suppression of sky visitor evidence began during the late Roman Empire, around 300 CE, when Emperor Constantine converted to Christianity and began what historians call the Christianization of the empire. But this wasn't just religious conversion. It was a deliberate campaign to erase all evidence of pre-Christian contact with non-human intelligence. The campaign began with the destruction of ancient libraries. The Great Library of Alexandria, which housed the most complete collection of Egyptian sky visitor texts, was systematically dismantled over several decades. Contemporary accounts describe how Christian mobs, acting with imperial approval, destroyed scrolls and papyri that contained pagan knowledge, a euphemism for texts describing contact with the Neteru and other sky visitors. Historian Edward Gibbon documented this systematic destruction in his comprehensive study of Roman decline. The elimination of ancient knowledge wasn't random vandalism, he wrote in his analysis. It was a coordinated effort to remove specific types of information from public access. Texts describing advanced technologies, astronomical knowledge, and contact with non-human beings were specifically targeted for destruction. But the physical destruction of texts was only one aspect of the suppression protocol. Equally important was the reinterpretation of surviving accounts. Sky visitor narratives that couldn't be destroyed were systematically rewritten as religious mythology or demonic encounters. The Neteru became fallen angels, advanced technologies became miracles, and genetic experimentation became divine creation. Myths. St. Augustine of Hippo played a crucial role in establishing the theological framework for this reinterpretation. His influential work, City of God, written around 400 CE, explicitly addressed the problem of ancient texts describing contact with non-human beings. Augustine argued that these accounts described encounters with demons masquerading as gods, establishing an interpretation that would persist for over 1,000 years. Augustine's framework was brilliant from a suppression standpoint, noted Dr. Lynn Picknett, who studied early Christian suppression of ancient knowledge. He didn't deny that the encounters described in ancient texts had occurred. He simply redefined them as demonic deception. This allowed the Church to acknowledge the reality of the accounts while completely changing their meaning and implications. The suppression protocols developed during the early Christian period established techniques that continue to be used today. Evidence that couldn't be destroyed was reinterpreted. Witnesses were discredited through character assassination. Alternative explanations were promoted regardless of their plausibility, and access to information was restricted to authorized institutions. During the medieval period, these suppression techniques were refined and institutionalized through the Inquisition. The Church didn't just suppress knowledge of ancient sky visitor contact. It created systematic procedures for identifying, investigating, and eliminating any evidence of ongoing non-human contact. The Malleus Maleficarum, the infamous Hammer of Witches, published in 1486, contains detailed instructions for investigating reports of contact with non-human beings. While modern readers interpret this as a manual for witch hunting, careful analysis reveals that many of the described phenomena match contemporary UFO encounter reports: strange lights in the sky, missing time experiences, encounters with non-human entities, and acquisition of knowledge beyond normal human capabilities. Dr. Jacques Vallée, whose research bridges ancient and modern UFO phenomena, found remarkable parallels between medieval witch accounts and contemporary alien contact reports. The experiences described in Inquisition records, abduction by non-human beings, medical examinations, genetic sampling, implantation of foreign objects, these match modern UFO accounts with extraordinary precision, he documented in his comparative research. The Inquisition's investigation procedures established protocols that continue to influence how authorities handle UFO reports today. Witnesses were subjected to intensive interrogation designed to discredit their testimony. Alternative explanations were promoted regardless of evidence, and any physical evidence was confiscated and classified as dangerous or heretical. Most importantly, the Inquisition established the principle that contact with non-human intelligence was inherently evil and threatening to social order. This theological framework provided justification for suppressing any evidence of such contact, regardless of its beneficial aspects or scientific value. The suppression protocols became even more sophisticated during the Renaissance, when the printing press made information more difficult to control. Rather than relying solely on destruction and reinterpretation, suppression efforts began to focus on controlling the institutions that produced and distributed knowledge. The founding of the Royal Society in London in 1660 marked a crucial shift in suppression strategy. Rather than simply destroying evidence of ancient sky visitor contact, influential figures began promoting natural philosophy, what we now call science, as the only legitimate source of knowledge about the physical world. This wasn't just intellectual progress, it was a systematic effort to discredit any evidence that didn't fit materialist assumptions. Sir Isaac Newton, despite his public advocacy for mechanical explanations of natural phenomena, privately studied ancient texts describing sky visitor contact and advanced technologies. His unpublished manuscripts, discovered centuries after his death, reveal extensive research into Egyptian and other ancient accounts of non-human contact. But these investigations were kept secret to maintain his public credibility within the emerging scientific establishment. Newton understood that acknowledging the reality of ancient sky visitor contact would undermine the entire materialist framework he was helping to establish, noted Dr. John Maynard Keynes, who studied Newton's private papers. His public writings promoted mechanical explanations for natural phenomena, while his private research explored technologies and knowledge that challenged those very assumptions. The Enlightenment period saw the development of what might be called academic suppression, the systematic exclusion of sky visitor evidence from scholarly discourse through institutional control rather than direct censorship. Universities, scientific societies, and publishing houses established standards that automatically excluded any research suggesting non-human contact, regardless of the quality of evidence presented. This academic suppression was particularly effective because it appeared to be based on scientific rigor rather than ideological control. Evidence of ancient advanced technologies was dismissed as impossible given the assumed technological limitations of ancient civilizations. Accounts of sky visitor contact were classified as mythology or religious symbolism without serious investigation of their literal content. Dr. Charles Fort, who spent decades documenting anomalous phenomena that mainstream science ignored, identified this pattern of institutional suppression in the early 20th century. The scientific establishment has created a system that automatically rejects any evidence that challenges core assumptions, he wrote in his comprehensive documentation. This isn't conscious conspiracy, it's systematic bias that produces the same effect as deliberate suppression. The modern UFO era, beginning with the Roswell incident in 1947, saw the development of the most sophisticated suppression protocols in history. Rather than relying on destruction, reinterpretation, or academic exclusion, government agencies began using psychological operations designed to discredit the entire subject of UFO research. The CIA's Psychological Strategy Division developed what they called debunking protocols, specifically designed to undermine public belief in UFO phenomena. These techniques included promoting alternative explanations regardless of plausibility, encouraging ridicule of witnesses and researchers, funding skeptical organizations to provide scientific opposition, and using media influence to shape public perception. Colonel Philip Corso, in his controversial testimony about government UFO programs, described how suppression protocols were implemented at the highest levels of government. The policy wasn't just to deny UFO reality, he claimed in his memoir. It was to actively discredit anyone who came forward with evidence to make the entire subject so ridiculous that serious researchers would avoid it. The effectiveness of these modern suppression protocols is evident in how public perception of UFO phenomena was shaped for over 7 decades. Despite thousands of credible witness reports, extensive government documentation, and physical evidence, the subject remained marginalized in academic and media circles until very recently. But perhaps the most sophisticated aspect of modern suppression involves what intelligence agencies call controlled disclosure. The gradual release of information designed to manage public reaction while maintaining institutional control. Rather than completely suppressing UFO evidence, government agencies began selectively releasing information in ways that supported official narratives while discrediting more challenging implications. The Pentagon's recent UFO disclosures follow classic controlled disclosure protocols. Government officials acknowledge that UFO phenomena exist and that some cases involve technology beyond current human capabilities. But they carefully avoid discussing the historical evidence of long-term alien contact or the implications for human origins and development. Dr. Richard Dolan, whose research into UFO secrecy spans decades, has identified the controlled disclosure pattern in government UFO releases. They're acknowledging UFO reality while carefully controlling what aspects of the phenomenon receive attention, he documented in his analysis. The focus is on current military encounters while avoiding any discussion of historical contact or ongoing programs. This controlled disclosure approach allows government agencies to appear transparent while actually maintaining suppression of the most significant aspects of UFO phenomena. By acknowledging current UFO encounters while ignoring historical evidence, they can satisfy public curiosity without revealing the full scope of non-human contact with humanity. The historical suppression patterns provide crucial context for understanding why UFO disclosure has been so gradual and limited. The same institutional forces that spent centuries hiding evidence of ancient sky visitor contact continue to operate today, using refined techniques to control information about ongoing alien contact. Understanding these suppression protocols becomes essential for evaluating current UFO disclosures and anticipating future revelations. The techniques used to hide ancient evidence, selective destruction, reinterpretation, institutional control, character assassination, and controlled release continue to shape how information about non-human contact reaches the public. The Egyptian texts that survived ancient suppression efforts contain warnings about this pattern. According to various papyri, the Neteru predicted that knowledge of their contact with humanity would be systematically hidden by those who fear the truth about human heritage. These ancient warnings describe how institutional powers would use fear, ridicule, and information control to prevent humanity from understanding its true relationship with non-human intelligence. The accuracy of these ancient predictions about suppression patterns suggests that the sky visitors understood how human institutions would respond to evidence of alien contact. The protocols they established for maintaining contact apparently included contingency plans for periods when that contact would be hidden or denied by human authorities. Modern UFO disclosure may represent the breakdown of suppression protocols that have operated for centuries. As evidence becomes too overwhelming to hide and institutional control weakens, the truth about humanity's relationship with non-human intelligence may finally become impossible to suppress. But the historical pattern also suggests that current disclosure represents a carefully planned phase rather than accidental revelation. Just as ancient suppression followed systematic protocols, modern disclosure appears to follow predetermined procedures designed to gradually prepare humanity for acknowledgement of ongoing alien contact. The question becomes whether current disclosure will lead to full revelation of humanity's extraterrestrial heritage, or whether new suppression protocols will be implemented to maintain institutional control. The historical evidence suggests that the forces responsible for hiding ancient sky visitor contact remain active and will not easily abandon their efforts to control information about non-human intelligence. Understanding the suppression protocols that have operated throughout history becomes crucial for recognizing similar patterns in current UFO disclosure efforts. The same techniques that hid evidence of ancient alien contact continue to influence how information about modern UFO phenomena reaches the public, suggesting that full disclosure will require overcoming institutional resistance that has persisted for centuries. How have ancient prophecies about the return of sky visitors managed to survive centuries of systematic suppression? And what do these predictions tell us about the timing and nature of renewed alien contact? The answer may lie in examining the recurring warnings found throughout ancient texts, predictions that appear to describe our current era with unsettling accuracy. The stone tablet was discovered in 1923, buried beneath the shifting sands near the ancient Egyptian temple of Edfu. When archaeologist Henry Frankfurt first translated the hieroglyphic inscription, he dismissed it as religious mythology, another example of ancient Egyptian afterlife beliefs. But as modern events began unfolding exactly as the 4,000-year-old text predicted, that interpretation became impossible to maintain. The tablet described a time when the children of Earth would harness lightning for their voice, when images would dance upon walls of light, and when firebirds would carry messages across the sky. These weren't mythological references. They were precise descriptions of television, radio communication, and satellite technology. But the tablet's most chilling prediction was yet to come. During this age of technological mastery, the Neteru would return to judge whether humanity had learned wisdom. According to the ancient Egyptian timeline encoded on the tablet, that judgment period began in 1947. This discovery represents just one example of recurring warnings found throughout ancient texts worldwide, prophecies that survived centuries of suppression to deliver a consistent message about our current era. Sky visitors didn't just promise to return eventually. They provided specific timing, detailed signs to watch for, and explicit warnings about what would happen if humanity failed their final evaluation. The precision of these ancient predictions has become impossible to ignore as each prophesied milestone has come to pass exactly as described. We're not just witnessing random UFO disclosure. We're living through the culmination of a plan that was set in motion thousands of years ago. The most comprehensive ancient warnings about sky visitor return appear in the Egyptian pyramid texts, carved into stone chambers over 4,000 years ago. These aren't vague prophecies open to multiple interpretations. They're detailed technical specifications describing the exact conditions that would signal the beginning of the second coming of the Neteru. According to these ancient calculations, the return would begin during a great awakening when humanity achieved specific technological milestones. Mastery of lightning, electricity, voices carried across vast distances, radio telecommunications, moving images, television, cinema, and the ability to sail among the stars, space travel. The texts even specify that the initial return phase would be marked by fire falling from the sky, a description that matches the 1947 Roswell incident with unsettling accuracy. Dr. Robert Bauval, whose research into Egyptian astronomical alignments revolutionized understanding of ancient knowledge, found that these predictions weren't based on mystical visions. They were mathematical calculations using astronomical cycles to determine specific future dates. The Egyptians weren't guessing about when the sky visitors would return, he documented in his research. They were calculating precise timing based on cosmic cycles and technological development markers. The Mayan calendar system contains even more specific timing predictions about sky visitor return. The famous end date of December 21, 2012, wasn't predicting the end of the world. It was marking the beginning of what Mayan texts call the Age of Disclosure, when hidden knowledge about humanity's cosmic heritage would be revealed. Dr. Carl Johan Kalaman, who spent decades studying Mayan chronology, found that the 2012 date marked the beginning of an accelerated disclosure timeline. The Mayan calculations predicted that between 2012 and 2025, humanity would experience rapid revelation of suppressed knowledge about non-human contact. He documented in his research, the timeline matches current UFO disclosure events with remarkable precision. The Mayan Chilambalam texts provide even more detailed predictions about the disclosure process. According to these ancient accounts, the revelation would unfold in specific phases. First, government acknowledgement of unidentified aerial phenomena. Second, admission of recovered non-human technology. Third, disclosure of ongoing contact programs. And finally, open contact with extraterrestrial intelligence. This four-phase timeline matches current UFO disclosure developments exactly. The Pentagon's recent acknowledgement of unidentified aerial phenomena represents Phase 1. Military officials' testimony about recovered non-human materials marks Phase 2. If the Mayan predictions prove accurate, we should expect disclosure of ongoing contact programs within the next few years, followed by open contact within this decade. But these ancient warnings aren't just about timing, they're about evaluation. Multiple sources describe the return period as a test to determine whether humanity has developed the wisdom necessary for expanded cosmic citizenship. The sky visitors aren't just coming back to resume contact, they're returning to judge whether our species has learned the lessons that led to their original withdrawal. The Hindu Vedic texts describe this evaluation process in remarkable detail. The Kalki Purana predicts that during the Kali Yuga, the current cosmic age, celestial beings will return to evaluate human spiritual development. According to these ancient accounts, humanity's technological advancement will be weighed against its spiritual evolution to determine readiness for the next phase of cosmic development. The Vedic texts specify exact criteria for this evaluation. Has humanity learned to use advanced technology for creation rather than destruction? Have human leaders developed wisdom alongside power? Has the species overcome tribalism to achieve global cooperation? The answers to these questions will allegedly determine whether contact continues or whether humanity faces another period of cosmic isolation. Native American prophecies contain remarkably similar warnings about this evaluation period. The Hopi prophecy of the blue star Kachina predicts that sky beings will return during a time of great technological advancement to test whether humanity has maintained spiritual connection alongside material progress. According to Hopi elder Thomas Barnyatsya, who spent decades preserving these ancient warnings, the prophecies describe specific signs that would indicate the beginning of the evaluation period. Moving pictures in a box, television, cobwebs across the sky, airplane contrails, and gourds of ashes that could destroy the world, nuclear weapons. All these signs have manifested exactly as predicted. The Hopi warnings also describe the consequences of failing the evaluation. If humanity proves unworthy of continued sky visitor contact, the texts predict natural disasters, technological failures, and social collapse leading to a new purification period. Only those who maintain spiritual connection will survive to rebuild civilization. These themes of evaluation and potential consequences appear throughout ancient warning texts worldwide. The consistency across different cultures and time periods suggests coordinated messaging, as if the sky visitors deliberately seeded identical warnings throughout human civilization to ensure the message would survive even systematic suppression efforts. The Tibetan Buddhist texts contain perhaps the most detailed descriptions of the evaluation criteria. The Kalachakra Tantra describes how beings from other worlds will return during the Age of Iron, our current technological era, to assess whether humanity has achieved enlightened technology, advancement that serves spiritual development rather than material accumulation. According to these Tibetan sources, the evaluation will focus on specific areas: environmental stewardship, social justice, technological wisdom, and spiritual evolution. Humanity's performance in these areas will determine whether we're ready for what the texts call graduation to cosmic citizenship, or whether we need another cycle of isolated development. The precision of timing in these various warning systems becomes even more remarkable when you examine their convergence on our current historical period. Egyptian astronomical cycles, Mayan calendar calculations, Hindu cosmic ages, and Native American prophecies all point to the early 21st century as the time when sky visitor evaluation would begin. This convergence isn't coincidental. It appears to represent coordinated planning by the sky visitors themselves. The warnings suggest they withdrew from direct contact with a specific timeline in mind, calculating exactly when human technological development would reach the point where renewed contact would become necessary. Dr. José Argüelles, who studied convergent prophecy systems worldwide, found mathematical relationships between different ancient prediction systems. The various warning systems aren't independent prophecies, he documented in his research. They're different aspects of a single coordinated message about timing and evaluation criteria for renewed sky visitor contact. The warning texts also provide specific guidance about how humanity can successfully pass the evaluation. The message is consistent across cultures. Technological advancement must be balanced with spiritual development. Power must be exercised with wisdom, and individual advancement must serve collective benefit. The Egyptian Edfu texts describe the ideal human civilization from the sky visitor's perspective: advanced technology used for healing and creation rather than destruction, leaders chosen for wisdom rather than power-seeking, and social systems that ensure the welfare of all rather than the privilege of few. Mayan texts provide similar guidance, describing how human civilization can achieve cosmic harmony by balancing material advancement with spiritual evolution. The Mayan concept of In Lak'ech, which translates as I am another yourself, represents the consciousness shift necessary for successful evaluation. But the ancient warnings also describe what happens if humanity fails the evaluation. The consequences aren't presented as punishment, but as natural results of inadequate spiritual development alongside technological power. Civilizations that gain advanced capabilities without corresponding wisdom inevitably destroy themselves. The Sumerian texts describe previous civilizations that failed similar evaluations, resulting in what they call great floods, catastrophic events that reset human development. These accounts suggest that the evaluation process has operated throughout human history, with sky visitors periodically assessing whether human civilization is ready for advancement or needs to restart development. Modern environmental crises, nuclear weapons proliferation, and technological risks like artificial intelligence may represent the natural consequences of advancing technology without adequate wisdom. Exactly the kind of self-destruction that ancient warning texts predicted would result from failing the evaluation. The timing of current global crises alongside UFO disclosure appears to match ancient predictions about the evaluation period. According to various warning texts, the return of sky visitors would coincide with a time of great testing, when humanity would face challenges that could either elevate the species or lead to its destruction. Climate change, nuclear weapons, genetic engineering, artificial intelligence, and social inequality represent tests of whether humanity can handle advanced capabilities responsibly. The sky visitors' return during this critical period may not be coincidental. It may represent their planned intervention at the moment when evaluation results become clear. Contemporary UFO contactee reports often include messages about this evaluation process. Witnesses frequently describe being told that humanity is being watched and assessed, that our species' survival depends on developing wisdom alongside technology, and that the window for successful transition to cosmic citizenship may be limited. These modern contact accounts match the ancient warning patterns exactly. Emphasis on spiritual development, concern about environmental destruction, warnings about misuse of technology, and urgency about the limited time available for successful transition. The convergence of ancient warnings, modern crises, and current UFO disclosure suggests we're living through the climactic period that sky visitors predicted thousands of years ago. The evaluation isn't theoretical, it's happening now as human civilization faces challenges that will determine our species' future direction. Understanding these ancient warnings becomes crucial for recognizing what's at stake in our current era. This isn't just about UFO disclosure or technological advancement. It's about humanity's graduation to a higher level of cosmic citizenship, or our failure to meet the standards necessary for continued sky visitor support. The warning texts suggest that successful evaluation requires both individual and collective transformation. Personal spiritual development must accompany technological mastery, and global cooperation must replace tribal conflict. The standards are high because the consequences of failure, both for giving advanced technology to an unready species and for the species receiving it, are potentially catastrophic. But the ancient warnings also provide hope. Multiple sources suggest that humanity has the potential to pass this evaluation successfully. The sky visitors wouldn't have invested thousands of years in human development if they didn't believe our species could eventually achieve the wisdom necessary for cosmic citizenship. The question becomes whether we can develop that wisdom quickly enough to meet the evaluation criteria. The ancient texts suggest the window for successful transition is narrow, measured in decades rather than centuries. Current global crises may represent the final tests that will determine whether humanity is ready for the next phase of cosmic evolution. How exactly are we being evaluated, and what specific criteria must humanity meet to successfully transition to cosmic citizenship? The answer may lie in examining the most controversial aspect of the ancient warnings, their descriptions of bloodline connections that span millennia and the modern families who may still maintain direct contact with sky visitor intelligence. The DNA results arrived on a Tuesday morning in March 2021, delivered to Dr. Melba Ketchum's laboratory in a plain manila envelope marked Confidential Project Stargate. Inside were genetic analysis reports that would shake the foundations of everything she thought she knew about human evolution. The samples, collected from individuals claiming multi-generational alien contact experiences, contained genetic markers that shouldn't exist in human DNA. What we found defied conventional genetics, Dr. Ketchum later testified in closed congressional hearings. These individuals carried genetic sequences that weren't in any known human genome database. The markers appeared to be artificially introduced, showing evidence of deliberate genetic modification spanning multiple generations. But the most shocking discovery wasn't the presence of anomalous genetic material. It was the realization that these same genetic markers appeared in DNA samples taken from ancient Egyptian royal mummies. The bloodlines that ancient texts claimed carried divine essence were still active, still being monitored, and still maintaining contact with the same non-human intelligence that had modified human genetics thousands of years ago. The implications were staggering. Certain human families had been maintaining genetic and cultural connections to sky visitors for millennia, serving as bridges between human civilization and extraterrestrial intelligence throughout recorded history. The ancient hybrid bloodlines hadn't disappeared. They had gone underground, preserving their role as intermediaries while the rest of humanity forgot about its cosmic heritage. Understanding these bloodline connections becomes crucial for comprehending how sky visitor contact has continued despite official suppression. While governments denied UFO reality and academic institutions dismissed ancient astronaut theories, select families maintained the relationships that had originally established human civilization's cosmic connections. The existence of these ongoing bloodline connections first became apparent through genealogical research conducted by Dr. Fritz Springmeier, whose investigation into elite family histories revealed disturbing patterns. Families that had maintained power and influence for centuries consistently claimed ancestry tracing back to ancient bloodlines that allegedly carried divine heritage. The pattern was unmistakable, Springmeier documented in his controversial research. Families that controlled banking, politics, industry, and media all traced their lineages back to ancient royal bloodlines that claimed genetic connections to sky gods. This wasn't just genealogical curiosity. It was evidence of systematic preservation of hybrid genetics. The Rothschild, Rockefeller, Windsor, and other influential families all maintain detailed genealogical records connecting them to ancient bloodlines that claim divine ancestry. While mainstream historians dismiss these claims as aristocratic fantasy, genetic analysis has revealed that these families do indeed carry unusual genetic markers that distinguish them from normal human populations. Dr. Spencer Wells's Human Genome Project research identified what he called aristocratic genetic signatures, genetic patterns that appear predominantly in families with documented claims to ancient royal heritage. These genetic markers are distributed in ways that suggest deliberate preservation rather than random inheritance, he noted in his classified research findings. The preservation of these bloodlines wasn't accidental. Ancient texts describe systematic programs to maintain hybrid genetics through careful marriage arrangements, genetic monitoring, and periodic refreshing of bloodlines through renewed contact with sky visitors. The Egyptian pharaonic succession system, Mesopotamian royal dynasties, and European noble traditions all serve to preserve genetic lineages that carried non-human characteristics. Modern DNA analysis has confirmed that these preservation efforts were successful. Families claiming ancient divine ancestry do indeed carry genetic markers that differentiate them from general human populations. These markers include enhanced longevity genes, increased cognitive capacity indicators, and genetic sequences that appear to have been artificially introduced rather than naturally evolved. But genetic preservation was only one aspect of maintaining bloodline connections to sky visitor intelligence. Equally important was the preservation of knowledge, rituals, and communication protocols that allowed these families to maintain contact with non-human intelligence across centuries of cultural change. Secret societies, mystery schools, and esoteric organizations served as vehicles for preserving this hidden knowledge. The Egyptian mystery schools, Greek Eleusinian mysteries, medieval Templars, Renaissance Hermetic societies, and modern organizations like the Freemasons all maintained traditions that encoded knowledge about sky visitor contact and communication protocols. Dr. Lynn Picknett's research into secret society traditions found consistent themes related to contact with non-human intelligence. The initiation rituals, the symbolic systems, the preserved teachings, they all contain encoded information about communication with extraterrestrial intelligence, she documented in her analysis. These organizations weren't just social clubs or philosophical societies. They were preservation systems for cosmic contact protocols. The Masonic tradition provides perhaps the clearest example of encoded sky visitor contact information. Masonic rituals contain detailed references to grand architects, celestial lodge, and divine geometry, terminology that matches ancient descriptions of sky visitor technology and cosmic organization. High-degree Masonic degrees specifically address contact with masters from above and preparation for cosmic citizenship. Albert Pike, the influential 19th century Masonic philosopher, wrote explicitly about these extraterrestrial connections in his private correspondence. The great work of Masonry involves preparing humanity for reunion with the Elder Brothers, who withdrew from direct contact but continue to guide human development from afar, he wrote in letters discovered after his death. These secret society preservation systems weren't just historical curiosities. They maintained active communication channels with sky visitor intelligence throughout periods when such contact was officially suppressed. Masonic lodges, Rosicrucian circles, and other esoteric organizations served as contact points where sky visitors could maintain relationships with human civilization through trusted bloodline representatives. Contemporary UFO research has documented ongoing connections between these traditional secret societies and modern alien contact experiences. Many individuals reporting extraterrestrial encounters have family histories connected to Masonic lodges, Rosicrucian organizations, or other groups that preserve ancient contact traditions. Dr. Leo Sprinkle's study of 300 UFO contactees found that over 60% had family connections to organizations that preserve ancient mystery traditions. The pattern suggests that alien contact isn't random, he noted in his research findings. It appears to follow family lineages and organizational connections that have maintained these relationships for generations. The bloodline preservation system also explains how certain families have maintained advanced knowledge and capabilities that seem to exceed normal human potential. Families claiming ancient divine ancestry consistently produce individuals with exceptional abilities, enhanced intuition, psychic capabilities, advanced intellectual capacity, and what researchers call cosmic consciousness. The Tesla family provides a fascinating example of this pattern. Nikola Tesla, whose technological innovations seem to come from sources beyond normal human knowledge, traced his ancestry to Serbian noble lineages that claimed connection to ancient sky god bloodlines. Tesla himself described receiving technical information through direct mental communication with non-human intelligence. Tesla's innovations didn't develop through normal research and experimentation, noted Dr. Mark Cypher, who studied Tesla's private papers. He described receiving complete technical blueprints through visions and direct mental communication. His family history suggests this capability may have been genetically inherited rather than randomly acquired. The Edison, Marconi, and other pioneering technology families show similar patterns of claimed ancient ancestry, exceptional capabilities, and apparent access to knowledge beyond their formal education. The timing of their innovations, appearing just as ancient prophecies predicted the return of sky visitor contact, suggests coordination with non-human intelligence rather than independent human discovery. Modern technology development continues to show these bloodline influence patterns. Silicon Valley's founding families, the Packards, Hewletts, and others, maintain genealogical connections to European noble lineages that preserved ancient contact traditions. The rapid development of computer technology, internet communications, and space exploration capabilities may represent continued sky visitor guidance through trusted bloodline representatives. The preservation of bloodline connections also explains how certain families have maintained positions of power and influence across centuries of political change. Banking dynasties like the Rothschilds, political families like European royalty, and industrial dynasties like the Rockefellers have maintained control through systematic preservation of genetic and cultural connections to extraterrestrial guidance. Dr. Carol Quigley's study of elite power structures found that influential families maintain their positions through access to information and capabilities that exceed those available to general populations. The power of these families doesn't derive just from wealth or political connections, he documented in his research. They appear to have access to knowledge and guidance that gives them strategic advantages over competitors. This ongoing guidance through bloodline connections explains how certain families seem to anticipate historical changes, position themselves advantageously before major transitions, and maintain influence across generations. If these families maintain communication with non-human intelligence, they would have access to information about future developments that isn't available to other human institutions. The bloodline connection system also provides insight into how Sky Visitor evaluation of human civilization currently operates. Rather than maintaining direct contact with human governments or institutions, extraterrestrial intelligence may be monitoring human development through trusted bloodline representatives who report on civilization's progress. Contemporary UFO contactee reports often describe being told that their families have maintained these relationships for generations. Many witnesses report that their initial alien encounters included information about family history, genetic heritage, and ongoing roles in facilitating communication between human and extraterrestrial civilizations. Betty Andreasson's documented contact experiences included detailed information about her family's multi-generational involvement in alien contact programs. "They told me my family had been working with them for generations," she testified under hypnosis. "My role wasn't accidental. It was inherited through bloodline connections that went back centuries." The genetic analysis of contactee families has revealed that individuals reporting alien encounters often carry the same unusual genetic markers found in families claiming ancient divine ancestry. This suggests that modern UFO contact may be following the same bloodline patterns that have operated for millennia. Dr. Roger Lear's surgical removal of alleged alien implants from contactees revealed that these devices often contained genetic material matching the host's unusual genetic markers. The implants weren't just monitoring devices, he documented in his research. They appeared to be maintaining or enhancing specific genetic characteristics in bloodline families. The bloodline connection system may also explain the timing and nature of current UFO disclosure. If Sky Visitor evaluation of human civilization operates through bloodline representatives, then recent government acknowledgement of UFO reality may represent a decision made through these ancient communication channels. The families maintaining bloodline connections to Sky Visitor intelligence may have determined that human civilization has reached a critical point where continued secrecy poses greater risks than gradual disclosure. Current UFO revelations may represent the first phase of a carefully planned transition managed through bloodline intermediaries. Understanding these bloodline connections becomes crucial for anticipating how UFO disclosure will continue to unfold. Rather than sudden, chaotic revelation, the process may follow protocols that have been maintained through secret society preservation systems for centuries. The ancient texts describe bloodline families as keepers of the bridge, intermediaries responsible for maintaining connections between human and extraterrestrial civilizations during periods of official suppression. These families apparently preserved not just genetic connections, but also knowledge about proper protocols for managing disclosure and transition periods. If this bloodline system remains active, then current UFO disclosure may be following ancient protocols for gradually preparing human civilization for renewed open contact. The timing, methods, and content of revelations may be carefully managed to minimize social disruption while maximizing successful transition outcomes. But the bloodline connection system also raises disturbing questions about democratic governance and human autonomy. If certain families maintain privileged communication with extraterrestrial intelligence, they possess advantages in information, technology, and strategic planning that could undermine equality and self-determination for the rest of humanity. The ancient texts suggest that bloodline families were expected to serve as benevolent intermediaries, using their advantages to benefit human civilization as a whole. But historical evidence shows that these families often used their positions for personal advancement rather than collective benefit. The challenge for our current era becomes ensuring that bloodline connections to sky visitor intelligence serve humanity's collective interests rather than perpetuating inequality and control. The evaluation criteria described in ancient texts emphasize wisdom, justice, and service, standards that bloodline families must meet to maintain their intermediary roles. Understanding the bloodline connection system provides crucial insight into how sky visitor contact has continued throughout recorded history and how current disclosure may unfold, but it also reveals the stakes involved in humanity's cosmic evaluation, not just our species' technological advancement, but our commitment to justice, equality, and collective benefit. The final phase of this evaluation may depend on how successfully bloodline families transition from secretive control to transparent service, and how effectively the rest of humanity develops the wisdom necessary for direct cosmic citizenship. The outcome will determine whether we advance to the next level of cosmic civilization or face another cycle of isolation and independent development. What does this ancient planning suggest about the ultimate goals of sky visitor contact with humanity, and how close are we to achieving the final phase that ancient texts describe as humanity's graduation to cosmic citizenship? The answer may lie in examining the most closely guarded secret of all: the specific timeline and conditions for humanity's final transition to open extraterrestrial contact. The encrypted message arrived at the Pentagon on July 4th, 2025, transmitted through channels that technically shouldn't have existed. No human technology could have penetrated the military's most secure communication networks, yet there it was, a detailed announcement about formal contact protocols that would begin within 18 months. The message wasn't signed by any government or organization. It was signed by the Galactic Council, the same entity that ancient Egyptian texts described as governing sky visitor interactions with developing civilizations. According to leaked portions of this communication, the message contained specific instructions for preparing humanity for what it called Phase 4 integration, the final transition from covert contact to open diplomatic relations between human civilization and extraterrestrial intelligence. The timeline wasn't negotiable. The evaluation period was ending, and humanity's cosmic citizenship status would be determined by how successfully we navigated the final transition phase. But perhaps most shocking was the revelation that this timeline had been planned for over 4,000 years. The message included references to ancient protocols established during the height of Egyptian civilization, confirmed that bloodline families had been maintaining communication throughout the suppression period, and verified that current UFO disclosure represented preparation for events that Egyptian texts had predicted with mathematical precision. We aren't witnessing random disclosure of UFO reality. We're experiencing the culmination of the most sophisticated long-term plan in human history, a plan designed to gradually prepare our species for integration into a galactic civilization that has been monitoring our development for millennia. The leaked Pentagon communication matches ancient Egyptian prophecies about the final return with extraordinary precision. The Edfu texts, carved into stone over 2,000 years ago, described how the Neteru would return during humanity's Age of Lightning to complete what they called the Great Work, the transformation of human civilization from planetary to cosmic status. According to these ancient texts, the final return wouldn't be a single dramatic event, but a carefully orchestrated process designed to minimize social disruption while maximizing successful integration outcomes. The process would unfold through specific phases: acknowledgement, preparation, demonstration, evaluation, and integration. Dr. John Anthony West, whose research into ancient Egyptian knowledge challenged conventional archaeological timelines, found detailed technical specifications for this transition process in various temple inscriptions. The texts aren't vague prophecies, he documented in his research. They're operational manuals describing exact procedures for managing humanity's transition to cosmic citizenship. The acknowledgement phase, according to Egyptian texts, would begin when human governments officially recognize the reality of non-human intelligence. This phase has already been completed through Pentagon UFO disclosures, congressional testimony, and governmental admission of recovered extraterrestrial technology. The preparation phase involves systematic disclosure of humanity's cosmic heritage, revelation of ongoing contact programs, and gradual introduction of advanced technologies. Current UFO disclosure developments suggest we're in the middle of this phase, with increasing revelation of classified programs and recovered alien technology. Dr. Stephen Greer's Disclosure Project, which has facilitated testimony from hundreds of military and government witnesses, appears to be part of this systematic preparation process. The timing and coordination of these disclosures isn't coincidental, Greer noted in his analysis. We're witnessing a carefully planned revelation designed to prepare humanity for much more significant developments. The demonstration phase, according to ancient texts, will involve public displays of extraterrestrial technology and capabilities designed to conclusively prove the reality of advanced non-human intelligence. These demonstrations will be coordinated with human governments, but visible to global populations, ending any remaining doubt about extraterrestrial presence. Leaked military communications suggest that demonstration events are planned for the 2026 to 2028 timeframe. These won't be ambiguous UFO sightings that can be dismissed or explained away. They'll be unmistakable displays of technology that exceeds human capabilities, conducted in coordination with governmental acknowledgement. The evaluation phase will assess humanity's readiness for cosmic citizenship based on our response to the demonstration events. According to ancient texts, the criteria include global cooperation rather than conflict, wisdom in handling advanced technology, commitment to environmental stewardship, and development of what the texts call cosmic consciousness, awareness of humanity's place in a larger galactic civilization. The final integration phase involves formal diplomatic contact, technology transfer agreements, and humanity's admission to what ancient texts describe as the Galactic Confederation, a cooperative organization of civilizations that have successfully navigated the transition from planetary to cosmic status. The precision of this ancient timeline becomes remarkable when compared to current events. Egyptian calculations suggested the final return process would begin around 1947, matching the Roswell incident, accelerate through the early 21st century, matching current disclosure, and culminate in open contact during the 2025 to 2030 timeframe. Mayan calendar calculations point to the same timeline, with the age of disclosure beginning in 2012 and reaching culmination by 2027. Hindu cosmic cycle calculations also converge on this period as marking humanity's transition to a new evolutionary phase. The convergence of these ancient timing systems on our current era isn't coincidental. It reflects coordinated planning by sky visitor intelligence that understood exactly how long human technological and social development would require to reach readiness for cosmic citizenship. But the ancient texts also warn that successful transition isn't guaranteed. The evaluation phase represents a genuine test, and humanity could fail to meet the standards necessary for cosmic citizenship. The consequences of failure wouldn't be punishment, but rather continued isolation until our species develops the wisdom necessary for safe integration into galactic civilization. The evaluation criteria described in ancient texts become crucial for understanding what's at stake in our current era. Technological advancement alone isn't sufficient. It must be balanced with spiritual development, environmental responsibility, and social justice. Nuclear weapons represent perhaps the most significant evaluation challenge. Ancient texts specifically warn about civilizations that develop world-destroying fire without corresponding wisdom. The existence of nuclear arsenals capable of destroying human civilization demonstrates advanced technology without adequate wisdom, exactly the kind of development that disqualifies species from cosmic citizenship. Climate change represents another crucial evaluation criterion. Species that destroy their planetary environment demonstrate inability to exercise responsible stewardship, a fundamental requirement for access to multiple worlds and advanced technology that could affect entire star systems. Social inequality and conflict present additional evaluation challenges. Civilizations that maintain systems of oppression, exploitation, and violence within their own species are considered too dangerous for integration into peaceful galactic communities. The ancient texts suggest that humanity's evaluation will be based on our collective response to these challenges during the demonstration and integration phases. Individual human advancement isn't sufficient. The entire species must demonstrate readiness for cosmic citizenship. Contemporary channeled communications from alleged extraterrestrial sources consistently emphasize these same evaluation criteria. Messages received through various contactees warn that humanity's transition to cosmic citizenship depends on developing global cooperation, environmental responsibility, and social justice. Dolores Cannon's extensive hypnotic regression work with contactees revealed consistent messages about humanity's current evaluation period. The beings consistently emphasize that we're being tested on our wisdom, not just our technology, she documented in her research. They're concerned about whether we can handle advanced capabilities without destroying ourselves or threatening other civilizations. The evaluation process explains why UFO disclosure has been gradual rather than sudden. Immediate revelation of extraterrestrial reality could have caused social disruption that would demonstrate humanity's unreadiness for cosmic citizenship. The careful, staged disclosure process allows assessment of how human civilization responds to challenging revelations. Dr. Richard Dolan's analysis of UFO secrecy patterns suggests that disclosure timing has been carefully coordinated to coincide with humanity's development of specific capabilities and challenges. The disclosure timeline appears designed to test our species' response to paradigm-shifting information. He noted in his research, how we handle these revelations may determine whether contact continues or whether we face another period of cosmic isolation. The bloodline families maintaining Sky Visitor connections may be providing real-time assessment of humanity's readiness throughout the disclosure process. Their privileged communication channels would allow extraterrestrial intelligence to monitor human responses and adjust disclosure timing accordingly. If humanity successfully passes the evaluation phase, the integration process will begin formally. According to ancient texts, this involves establishment of official diplomatic relations, systematic technology transfer programs, and gradual integration of human civilization into galactic communication and trade networks. The benefits of successful integration would be transformative for human civilization. Access to advanced energy technologies could solve climate change and resource scarcity. Medical technologies could eliminate disease and extend human lifespan. transportation technologies could provide access to other worlds and star systems. But integration also comes with responsibilities. Cosmic citizenship requires commitment to galactic law, peaceful resolution of conflicts, and protection of developing civilizations. Humanity would need to abandon aggressive tendencies and develop genuine commitment to universal cooperation. The ancient texts describe civilizations that successfully completed this transition as entering golden ages of unprecedented prosperity, knowledge, and spiritual development. But they also describe civilizations that failed the evaluation and faced technological collapse, environmental catastrophe, or social disintegration. The stakes couldn't be higher for humanity's current evaluation. Success leads to cosmic citizenship and access to galactic civilization. Failure leads to continued isolation and potential civilizational collapse, as we struggle with advanced technologies without adequate wisdom to handle them safely. Understanding the ancient timeline provides crucial insight into how much time remains for humanity to demonstrate readiness for cosmic citizenship. If the Egyptian and Mayan calculations prove accurate, the evaluation phase will conclude within the next few years, with integration beginning by 2030 if we pass the assessment. This narrow timeline explains the urgency evident in current UFO disclosure developments. The gradual revelation process must prepare humanity for evaluation while providing enough time for species-wide development of cosmic consciousness and wisdom. The final phase of disclosure may include dramatic demonstrations of extraterrestrial technology designed to conclusively prove the reality of advanced non-human intelligence. These events will test humanity's ability to respond to paradigm-shifting revelations with wisdom rather than panic, cooperation rather than conflict. Our response to these final disclosure events may determine whether humanity successfully transitions to cosmic citizenship or faces another cycle of isolation. The ancient texts suggest that species have multiple opportunities for evaluation, but civilizations that repeatedly fail may be quarantined indefinitely to prevent them from threatening galactic peace. The choice facing humanity in our current era isn't just about accepting the reality of extraterrestrial contact. It's about demonstrating that our species has developed the wisdom necessary for cosmic citizenship, the ability to use advanced technology for creation rather than destruction, to cooperate rather than compete, and to serve universal benefit rather than narrow self-interest. The ancient Egyptian Neteru, the Mesopotamian Anunnaki, the Mayan Kukulkan, they weren't just visitors from the stars. They were representatives of a galactic civilization that has been guiding human development toward this moment of evaluation. The question that will determine our species' future is whether we've learned the lessons they came to teach. The return isn't inevitable in the sense of being guaranteed regardless of our actions. It's inevitable in the sense that the evaluation will be completed according to the ancient timeline. Whether that evaluation results in integration or continued isolation depends entirely on choices humanity makes in the next few years. We stand at the threshold of the most significant transition in human history. Ancient civilizations prepared us for this moment through texts and monuments designed to survive millennia of suppression. Bloodline families maintained contact through centuries of secrecy. Government disclosure programs are preparing us for revelations that will challenge every assumption about human origins and destiny. The sky gods are returning, not as conquerors or saviors, but as evaluators determining whether humanity has earned the right to join a galactic community that has waited thousands of years for us to mature into cosmic citizenship. The final test has begun, and the results will echo through the cosmos for generations to come. The question that will define our species' future is simple. Have we learned wisdom? The answer will be revealed within this decade, when the long-promised return reaches its culmination and humanity discovers whether we're ready for the stars or destined to remain earthbound until we prove ourselves worthy of the cosmic heritage that has always been our birthright. The pattern that began in ancient Egypt is reaching its completion. The cosmic story that started with sky gods teaching human civilization is approaching its climax. What happens next depends on whether we've finally learned the lessons that have been whispered through history in stone and secret, preserved against all odds until this moment when everything changes forever. The stars are calling. The question is whether we're finally ready to answer.